and I'll give you a little bit more information about myself. But first, I wanted to take a second to applaud you. You guys are here investing in yourselves. And I know yesterday I had an opportunity to tune in a bit, and I was just really inspired by all the conversation. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being engaged. And thanks for having me speak for a few minutes today. So as I mentioned, I wanted to just give you a little bit more insight about me and my journey. So Kevin did a nice introduction here, but a little bit more about me. So I'm born and raised in Nebraska, bleed red, grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, but wanted to get away for college. So I went to the University of Iowa with a degree in marketing and a minor in journalism. As I mentioned, I'm a Husker fan, true and true. So it was kind of hard to be at the University of Iowa, still rooting for Nebraska, but kind of trying to play cool with all my Iowa friends. But had a great experience in Iowa. I am married with 3 crazy children. Ellie is my oldest. You can see her Zoom desk behind me. She spent some time with me over this past year doing Zoom school. Ollie is our middle child. He's 5. And then we have a 2-year-old Charlie who definitely keeps me on my toes. And most of Swanson Russell has gotten to know these 3 crazy kids throughout this change in work landscape over the past year. So after college, I got my career start in Chicago. I wasn't quite ready to move back to Lincoln. And I actually started out in the media world, which really influenced my passion and love of digital. I kind of got to grow up and see how the digital landscape could evolve, and we could do so many different things. And it was also really exciting to try and stay on top of all the new things that were happening and the new ways to use digital and advertising. After about 6 years in Chicago, I made my way a little bit closer back to home and spent about 5 years in Kansas City. I got to work for 2 fairly large digital ad agencies. I spent about 4 years at VML, where I really got my career started. I was kind of thrown in with this sink or swim model working on the Gatorade business, which was a lot of fun. It was crazy hours. But I learned a lot. We were doing a lot of digital shoots, but everything was digital focused, and we were doing takeovers, and it was a very, very exciting time. I then had an opportunity to work on the Wendy's brand, which was a lot of fun. I think one of my favorite memories from that client was we came up with an idea where we sang love songs to the pretzel bacon cheeseburger. So definitely a memorable experience. And then I spent some time at Barkley working on the Dairy Queen brand. Spent a lot of time and effort in the Blizzard of the Month category and really trying to come up with new innovations and a lot of content. We produced a lot of content for that brand. Then I was ready to move home. Having kids and needing help, just getting back to family was kind of the next step in my career. And this is where I found myself at Swanson Russell. And I'll tell you, as exciting as some of those brands I was working on in the past, nothing has been more rewarding or more challenging than working on some of the current brands. As Kevin mentioned, I get to work on PERC, the Propane Education and Research Council, and it's a challenging account. But we do a lot of crazy things, in and out of our days with them. Also going to work on Rainbird. I've worked on the beef board. I've learned a lot about the agriculture that is in our backyard, and it's been very exciting and very rewarding to kind of come home and work on some of these bigger regional accounts. All right, so now the topic at hand. I want to talk a little bit about the digital landscape and really how that's escalated over the past year. And I think we can all look back, to what we were doing a little over a year ago. I was collaborating with my colleagues in person. We were having in-person meetings. We were meeting in the kitchen. And now it's Zoom for everything. I was traveling to trade shows or bigger client meetings. And Now we're trying to tackle all of that stuff virtual, where some of our bigger challenges is, how do we find a way to make these meetings more engaging, and how do we continue to connect on the levels that we used to connect on when we were in person? Personally, I was attending concerts, and now everything's web-based music festivals. And this might age me a little bit, but my 9-year-old niece also taught me more about TikTok over the past year. So it's just really crazy to think that the digital landscape has been growing so rapidly around us. But we need to think about what this means for us as advertisers, but also for you as new talent entering this market. So my hope is that I can answer a couple of these questions for you this morning. So as I mentioned, COVID has really escalated the digital landscape. More or less, the internet, it's our world. It's how we're experiencing things. And more than ever, the user is in the driver's seat, and we have to be responsive to their needs, when and where they want it. And this whole idea of help me faster, know me better, wow me everywhere has never been more prominent. And these were all things we thought about last year, but they're just so much more escalated now. If you think about, any of your online experiences, you want to find the thing that you need fast. You also have some type of, expectation that this experience is going to know something about you, and you want it to be a very powerful and wowed experience. So it puts a lot of strain on us as advertisers or digital creators to make sure that we're keeping up with these things and we're moving as fast as our audience and our users expect us. So I found this quote from Deloitte that I thought was really, really true. The COVID-19 story isn't so much about before and after as it is before and faster. There really has been a digital transformation in a matter of months. We're starting to see platforms evolve to do more things. And, personally, I think a specific example of this is the social space. It's evolved to be more of a place of purchase instead of just discovery. And, I even look back to Christmas. I was buying things for my children, from influencers that I was seeing on Instagram. I wasn't going to brand websites and places to purchase as I normally would. I was doing it all through social, and I've really seen that trend, at least for myself. My sister and I laugh about it all the time. I mean, I don't know how I would continue to buy retail without these influencers. And this is something that's really escalated and transformed really quickly over the past year. I think this is a really interesting stat too, if you think about it. The daily online content consumption, it's doubled from 3 hours and 17 minutes to close to 7 hours a day. And sometimes, I sit there and think about, wow, what are we all consuming as users and consumers? But I don't necessarily see this stat changing much. It may decrease a bit, but we're all just continuing to consume new and different content. Wanted to look a little bit about the effect on tech usage. 27% of people have used a new video chat platform such as Zoom or Google Hangouts. And when I think about that, it's also interesting to hear, even my 2-year-old, he uses the word Zoom. It's just part of his vocabulary. And I don't know that I would have thought about that a year and a half. It's just become a year and a half ago. It's been so ingrained in our everyday language and our everyday experiences. 18% of people have had a video call with a doctor or a medical professional for the first time. And I think we all knew that telehealth was a thing and we had heard of it, but the pandemic absolutely escalated it into an everyday service or a need. And I think we're just going to continue to see more of that trend. 14% have downloaded a new app to help with a topic of interest. And if you think about apps, mobile apps, they've primarily helped to keep everyone's schedules intact over the past year and a half. our behaviors, our buying habits, how we socialize. All of that has been undergoing significant transformation. It's kind of to the point where we joke sometimes, well, there's got to be an app for that. And, if there's not, there's probably a market space for us to create that app. But the pandemic really has influenced, how we use apps, how we communicate. Looking at our digital audiences, digital visits really have peaked through the pandemic. There was, back in April, a spike where we saw 64.3 billion digital visits across these 10 categories. And while digital visits have slowly declined, they're still 30% higher than pre-pandemic levels, which is really crazy to think about. And I know I've mentioned this a couple times, but I don't know that that's going to be a trend that changes. I think we're going to just continue to see our digital interactions continue to increase. Retail. I talked a little bit about retail, but we also saw a peak in April for some top retail sites, and it did decline a little bit, but it's still 50% above our pre-pandemic levels in retail. And I know we've all had to shift how we purchase, and Amazon, at least for us, has been very important over the past year, but retail is definitely something that's been very much influenced. Gaming. Now this is a trend I'm guessing many of you know fairly well, but video games have seen a huge boost during the crisis. Pre-COVID, 29% of consumers binge gamed every week for an average of 3.3 hours per session. And now if we look at what might come out of COVID, post-COVID, 48% of customers have participated in some form of gaming activity. And if you look at the gaming industry, it's something that's changed tremendously. It's inspired commerce, social commentary, and it's also created new types of celebrity, more so than, I think what we saw 2 years ago. Content is still king. We've been talking about that for quite a long time, but it's really king of a new kingdom. 44% said they've subscribed to a new streaming service to watch new original content not available anywhere else. And 38% of consumers have tried a new digital activity since the pandemic began. I don't know about you guys, but I know, especially with my parents and even my grandparents, trying to help them survive or subscribe to new things has been really interesting over the past couple of years. They've been consuming content in a new way that they haven't in the past. Experiences that blend live events with at-home viewing are also starting to appeal more and more to consumers. 1/3 of consumers have said that they wouldn't be comfortable going to live events for 6 months. And people and advertisers, they're taking note of that, especially the movie industry. 22% have paid to rent a new movie recently that was released to a streaming service. And 90% said that they'd do it again. Brands are having to create new experiences with consumers and really looking to figure out how they can dial these elements up and help intersect them in real time. So, what does this mean for you? I'd like to tie it back to you guys for a minute. I think what's so interesting is that growth is happening in the areas that are native to your generation. Specifically, social. We talked about that for a little bit. Gaming, streaming, even artificial intelligence. I didn't touch on that too much, but Gen Z is the most internet dependent generation. And you have a digital literacy that some of us older generations don't have, or a lot of people in the older generations have had to learn. A couple other things to think about is brands are looking for new creative solutions. And this is an opportunity for you to use your daily interactions with digital to help fuel your creativity. This is really an opportunity to push the boundaries by creating new types of experiences, using what you're already inherently doing to, bring it to the workforce, or new ways of thinking that some of us who've been doing this for 15 years may not be thinking about. Talent, I think this is going to be really interesting too. Creative isn't being seen in its original form. Companies are looking for creatives with interdisciplinary skills. They're looking to combine data, science, art to create. We may not be looking at some of the traditional job forms in the next couple of years. And I think this is an opportunity for you guys to come in and stretch the boundaries and show us what you can do, and put that motivation to work and push us to think in new and unique ways. So now I'm going to spend just a couple minutes talking a little bit about Swanson Russell. And if we have a little bit of time after that, I can try to open this up for any questions. I know Lisa did a great job yesterday of introducing you to Swanson Russell, but I wanted to spend just a little bit of time talking about our digital department. We have 35 plus digital specialists on the digital department team, and that is growing. We have had 8 new hires since the beginning of COVID-19. And this is something that's been, pretty exciting. We're growing. Our clients are very invested in the digital space. We had to quickly pivot to figure out how we could put trade shows online, how we could help our sales team, our client sales team, connect with an audience that, they were used to having in person. So I think that's really shown why there's been a lot of growth in the digital space. Specific to Swanson Russell too, we have quite a few comprehensive skill sets. We have a team of strategists who are really engaged in kind of overseeing the digital landscape for our clients. User experience, who are really looking at, a website or an app and really trying to think through that whole user journey and how are we going to make the best experience for that audience. We have a development team who we work with in-house, who is, leading all the development needs that we have. And then we also have insights and analytics. So how are we using all of our learnings and our data to influence, the next experience? We're also very integrated with our creative staff. So digital and creative, we work hand in hand to really make sure that we're creating the best experiences that we can. And we also have a pretty strong client support team. So every client in our agency is supported with a digital strategist. Again, that big picture thinking. A producer who really is boots on the ground. They're getting all of the work done. And then a coordinator who helps with a lot of our media and our campaign work. A little bit more specifically, I mentioned strategic planning. So this is where we're really working with the account service team, our creative team, our media team to plan strategically for what we need to help our clients achieve in the digital space. Campaign production, that's a lot of producing digital ads, creating landing pages, really tying that whole experience together. Website development, we do a lot of full-scale website redesigns for our clients, but this is also something that we do at the campaign level, where we're creating new custom landing pages to really make sure that we are capitalizing on the right event and conversion for our client. Content strategy. We talked about content being an important tactic for a lot of our clients, and so much of us are engaging in content every day. We work really hard with our clients to try to make sure that we can help them craft a strategy and also produce that content that's going to engage their end audiences. User testing. So this is something we're doing more and more of, and part of my job that I really enjoy. But a lot of times we think as the advertising agency or even as our clients that we know what our audience wants, and user testing really gives us that opportunity to test our idea and put it out in the real space and get real-time feedback so that we can make that creative and that idea even better. And then I touched on analytics and reporting. I mean, this is so key to what we do, in the digital space and for all of our clients, just ensuring that we have the right reporting set up, that we are able to capture conversions, and we're talking about goals, that we're reporting on it and observing and learning and taking all of those insights into the next project that we do. So I thought it might be interesting to ask our agency a little bit about, what they look for in their digital counterparts. And as I read through these, I think it's really true whether you're in digital or not. These are just some of the key characteristics that, make members on our team successful. Expertise, and this is a tough one in a changing landscape, but here we're saying the best digital team members work hard to be a wealth of knowledge, so they're ready for the challenge ahead. And sometimes that means taking a couple minutes out of your day to listen to a podcast or read the Moz blog and just try to figure out what's coming ahead, so that we can make sure that we're ready for it. Strategic thinker, works well with all departments and teams, no ego amigo. So one of the things I love about the digital department here at Swanson Russell is we really do get opportunity to work with a lot of the different departments. And it's really important for us to be collaborative and think big picture. We also have to be okay with being flexible, comfortable, and being uncomfortable. And I think that's very true of anybody in the advertising profession. It's really about being a go-getter and a team player. Balance, really finding a balance between solid communication skills and expertise. Need to scale up to challenging work, but also be okay willing to do even the most basic things and getting satisfaction out of any contribution. And I think that's a really, really important thing. There are times where we might just be doing the most mundane of tasks, but sometimes those are the most important things that need to get done to ensure, we're assisting our client where we need to. Being a great communicator. I mean, this is very important in any advertising role. We need to be clear, timely, polished. Always working on our communication skills is something that's very critical in this role. And, lastly, this is one of my favorite things for anybody to think about, but it's really not being afraid to ask questions, challenging the norm of how something is done. Be curious. We talk about this a lot in the digital landscape. The more curious you are, the more questions that you ask, the more you're going to get other people to think, the more you're going to learn yourself. And that really is really great advice, and something I hope that I can leave you all with is just keep up with that curiosity. So wanted to give you guys my contact information. I'm always up for an email or a Zoom coffee, or to find me on LinkedIn. I really have a lot of passion for digital and the advertising space. And so take a screenshot of that, or we can send that out, but please contact me at any time. I'm eager to help.
Kylie, we have a number of questions for you. One
Sure.
of the first ones is, if you could go back to your senior year of college, what advice would you give yourself? Or is there anything that you would do differently?
Oh gosh. If I could go back, I do think I would have, asked more questions and maybe taken things a little bit more seriously, because I didn't know what the real world was gonna get into. I think I would have taken more internships, asked more of my professors, just tried to get a new feel for all the different options and things that are out there in the advertising space.
Great. Another one, How do you continue your education and your growth while working full time, managing your family, and all of the social activities, going to, when we're not during the pandemic, going to concerts and enjoying all of the things that your full life has? What do you do to continue your education and growth? Are there some resources you can share with us?
Yeah, oh, that is something I think I struggle with almost daily because I want to be doing more. But honestly, I found a couple podcasts, and I'd be happy to share those out, that I listen to sometimes when I'm getting ready. I used to drive out to Omaha once a week prior to COVID, and that was kind of my time. That was my car time where I could, listen to coffee podcasts, listen to things that were, really interesting to me. But podcasts have kind of been my way because I love to read, but running around with three kids after a long day at work, I feel like I read 2 pages and then fall asleep. And then anything that can be sent to my inbox, whether that's um, an email that I can scan while I'm reading or eating lunch, or you know waiting for a child to be done at the dentist, things like that.
And here's another real good question for you. What was or is the favorite project or brand that you've worked on?
Oh my gosh. I've got to do a lot of really exciting things. I think, prior to Swanson Russell, I was really, really proud of some of the work that I did on Dairy Queen. We were an advertising agency, but we got to help use our insights and behaviors to influence the next menu item for their blizzard. And I think that's really inspiring because sometimes, as an advertiser, you think, oh, you're just building ads and creating campaigns, but we can really influence a lot more than that. At Swanson Russell, I have had so much fun working with our ad clients, and looking at their websites and redesigning their websites. I mean, for our ad clients, our websites are just a really important tool. They're used for the sales team, they're used for the end user, they're used for our clients, and so getting really to talk to all of the stakeholders in those projects and make something come to life has been really rewarding.
We have a few more for you too.
Sure.
When you're looking at resumes for for your digital team specifically, what stands out and how can a student, a new hire, a student for an internship, or how can a prospective new hire, how can they stand out when you're looking at those resumes?
Absolutely.
Or for you or any other agency?
Yeah. I think one of the things that's actually really important to me is that cover letter. And especially if you don't have, a lot of experience on your resume. I know how tough it can be when you're just starting out and the resume feels thin. There have been times where, we might bypass someone without that cover letter because that's your opportunity to tell yourself or tell us about yourself and why we should, dig into that resume. So I know that's one thing that I really look for. I look for the personality and the character to come out of that. But I'm also looking at your extracurricular activities. Things that are going to allow you to add value to our company and our team. We can get in a habit of looking for people that are just like us, but we really want to branch out and look for people that can add more things. So I would encourage you to add any of those things that make you unique to your resume, and that will help you stand out.
I think that answers the next question as well, but maybe you can give our attendees a little bit of an example of some projects that they might want to do. The question is, what kinds of projects can a student do for their portfolio that shows digital media thinking or skills
Oh yeah.
through those through those extra projects that they're working on?
Yeah, we've seen recently quite a few resumes that have gone digitally, creating your own website. And I don't think you have to have, all your art showcased there or your copy. I mean, we've seen producers, who have created websites just to show that they've gone the extra mile and, put things about them that are personal. I mean, that stuff is so important to us. We really want to get to know you. We want to know your career aspirations. We want to know what makes you curious. And so I think there's a lot of tools out there that you guys can really latch onto and show that you're going, that extra mile when applying for jobs.
Kevin, I think that rounds us out with the questions that were asked.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kylie.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you guys.
Yes, you have a good rest of your day. And like I said, thanks. All right, everybody, we got 10 minutes to grab a drink, snack, go for a quick jog around the house, something to keep the blood flowing. We're going to come back at 10:45 for our amazing panel of digital advertising CEOs and agency owners. We'll see you soon.
And my hope is that we get to come back pretty soon. I mean, we're going to try some things over the next few months as people are comfortable. But it's been nice for me personally to be back in the office. So.
Awesome. And speaking of connection, how have you guys kept culture alive from a digital standpoint? You're not in the office anymore. There's not, that camaraderie around the water cooler or whatever. So what are you guys doing to keep culture fresh?
Well,
Go ahead.
okay. We've made a really serious effort here, and culture has always been important at OBI, thanks to other people. Because again, I get really hyper focused, and then culture is like, oh, culture, yeah, we need to have culture. But we have a culture club, and they've been exceptional. We've done like drive-through meal pickups for our staff and then for their families. So we did that early on just because we missed everybody. And then, we've been sending like what we would do for an influencer, like an influencer kit. We've been sending those to our teams to like a Valentine's Day gift. It always seems to have some sort of alcoholic beverage in it and, some sort of, sugary food. And then we did some holiday stuff. So any event, we're trying to reach out physically to just support and kind of augment the digital side. We do Fridays at 4. We've done it every Friday for the last 20 years. And so we still do that just on Zoom. I've noticed it sort of is kind of, tapering off because I think people are sort of done with Zoom by the end of the week. But I know that, we're doing a lot more texting and a lot more just communicating within the platforms that we're working in. But culture is really important. And I do think it's become even more important during this time when we really are separated. So.
Yeah. A lot of similar things for us, when the pandemic hit and we went remote, it completely blew up our 50th anniversary party plans. So we had to scramble on that, and we did what Marianne was saying, sort of a digital physical hybrid thing where everyone ordered meals in, and we had dinner together virtually, with the founders of the agency and things like that. But, you have to keep a long tail of that activity going. And, we also, send little surprise, boxes of goodies and things like that to folks and, try to have various events. In fact, the mustache setup here is from an event we had on Friday late afternoon from our culture club, which was a virtual murder mystery event, which was super fun. And I was a New York Mafia enforcer. So that's why I've gone with this facial hair.
I think you won best costume too.
Yeah, I did. So things like that. But, we have regular Monday morning meetings that help set the pace for the week, and focus on what's going to be important. We have monthly staff meetings where we take a step back and we talk about how the business is going and recognize people through this little kudos program that we have where it's like a peer-to-peer recognition thing. And then the leadership team, has these rotating coffee appointments with the staff just to check in one-on-one. And, all of those things are important. There's no silver bullet here, and no one's ever done this before, so we're all just trying to feel our way through it. And, I think that the trap that we were in early on was, well, we're going to close for 10 days. We're going to close for 14 days. We'll be back in a month. And then we said, you know what, it's setting these false expectations that are impossible to manage against. And so we really tried to take the air out of that anticipation and said, this is going to be a marathon, so one day at a time. We don't know when we're going to be back. Let's just slow the pace and stay focused on what's important today. And I think that that's really helped too.
Yeah, we've done a lot of similar things. We have a social committee, so they're self-selected in. They get a budget every year. They get to plan events. Usually we do a big summer party and a big holiday party. And so we did a virtual house party this summer where we did like home scavenger hunts and whatever else. we've done a lot. We have a animator that's also a creative writer. So he's been doing Mad Lib stories, and everybody sort of sends in their stuff, and then we hear out the story throughout. It always ends up being fun and very jovial. So that's been a good time. We did a move challenge where we teamed up with people, different team members, and then we had a target of steps a day for everybody. And so it was a fun way of being like, I hiked, I walked my dog, like somebody running in place to try and hit their steps in the middle of the day. So that was kind of fun and got everybody out. You know, digital fatigue. I love digital. I come from a digital background, but like when you're by yourself in a house for so long, like you have a really great presentation or meeting, and then, you know, everything shuts down and you're alone at home with your dogs. And so we've done a lot of sort of one-off. One of the things I like to talk about is sort of, we're humans first. So like the fact that we have a lot of moms that were also trying to like juggle teaching their kids throughout the day. We had one staffer whose young kids picked a crazy hat for him every day before a meeting. So, you know, we've met a lot of babies in these meetings, even with clients. And so I think the humanity of all of us, those professional relationships have become a lot more personal, just in the nature of how we're interacting. One of our core values is to kiss change on the lips. This year was 100% of a challenge for that. But we also did like a work from home hero. Usually we do what we call the Leo. It's monthly. It's for going above and beyond. It's all submitted by staff. And we did work from home hero. And rather than getting a parking spot and $100, because that doesn't really matter when you're at home, we did a support local, so they can pick any local business, and we do a gift card to that business. So trying to stay true to who we are and who our culture is, and find little ways to adapt both in person and virtual, which is a challenge. Sometimes well, one of our project managers started a chain of Teams messages, and we call her DJ X-Teen. And so after a big presentation, she'll send out a playlist. Everybody sort of joins in. Those little things, you know, there's the main things that we all sort of mentioned, but I was trying to think of some smaller things that we've done that sometimes you just need to like randomly like, hey, I'm having coffee. What are you doing right now? Let's just chit chat. Even just having somebody in video to like the water cooler conversations, not being able to see who's busy and when they're busy, you know, that's always a challenge. So trying to have more of those personal moments with people and encouraging everyone else to do that as well, because it's very easy to get productive and locked into what you have to do and miss out on the relationships you've built with, you know, with your staff and with your clients. Digital onboarding is a whole different challenge.
I will say it has been interesting. We've hired some new employees since then, and I haven't seen them in person, but they're great to work with over Zoom. So that's new. Okay, enough about pandemic stuff. We're going to move on to some more questions. Who inspires you personally or professionally?
I mean, so many. I'm literally going through like all of these people in my head.
Well, you know, I think professionally, one of my old bosses, John Hegarty from BBH, is, you know, someone that has always fearlessly believed in the power of difference, you know, and the agency is, you know, brand and ethos is built on that. And, you know, he was always someone that challenged, you know, and pushed the edge for better work, you know, at a really high standard, but at the same time, he knew it was advertising, right? I remember we were pitching for the LG Electronics global brand business in Seoul, South Korea. And we were presenting in this room that looked like the United Nations, right? It was like the global chairman of LG Electronics, and it was like probably 100 people in there. And right before the meeting, he hands, there's like 4 of us from the agency presenting these little brown bags, and it said, "Rip open in case of emergency." And he's like, "You can't open it now, but if I open mine, you open yours, and you do what I do, and you follow me." Fortunately, in this presentation, we did not have to rip open the little brown bags, but what they were those little rubber animal faces. And John had decided that if the meeting was going bad, we were just going to put on those rubber animal faces and walk out of the meeting. And it was such a perfect thing, to manage the tension of the team, so, as a leader of an agency who, really pushed for greatness, he's someone that always has inspired me that way. And then personally, I think probably my wife. She's a super smarty pants, moved here from Russia, with like $50 in her pocket, and is, someone that has accomplished incredible things in her life. And, whenever I think about the grind and, how difficult the week's going to be, it sort of puts me in my place. So.
Well, that's so awesome about your wife. That's cool. So for me, I've had so many mentors in my career that I'm super grateful for. And one of my first mentors was an old boss at Gateway, and his name is Ted Waite, and he was the founder. And he still inspires me today. The things that he works on, his approach to communications. And I think he was really pivotal in kind of my ethos around how you take care of customers, and how you err on the side of the customer from a marketing perspective and just as a human. And so and I think that he always believed in me. That really inspired me, because it added a level of pressure that I put on myself not to disappoint, and that I still feel that responsibility to this day, because of all the opportunities that have been, that I've received through the relationship with him and Gateway and all of those things. And the other person that is definitely has inspired me is my dad. And I think it really does go back to belief. Again, like if somebody believes in me, I won't let them down. It's just, I don't know, probably we're all like that, but it's just such an awesome responsibility if someone believes in you. And all it takes is one person, in my opinion, to believe in you, for you to make a difference. And my dad always did. It didn't matter what I tried. If I took guitar lessons, I was going to be the next rock star. If I was the president of student council, I'd be the next president of the United States. Like it never, and it was always big, grand things that he would kind of just, I don't know, imprint in my mind. And so I really, a lot of times during this pandemic, I've actually thought, like, what would my dad have done right now? He's gone now, but he still inspires me. So yeah, that's who I would say.
Well, I would say Dad is a great one. I was trying to go through, we went through a leadership exercise, myself and Kim and Robin, the other 2 owners. And it takes you through sort of your core values, and you get all the way down to the bottom. And what I realized with my top five they were all my father. So I was a military brat. I grew up very much in that same sort of core value set. And in that vein, there's a man by the name of Colonel Ty Sedgley. He ran the history department for the military academy for West Point. And I got the opportunity as a very young female in a room full of very high-ranking officers, including 4-star generals. And I was given a seat at the table to talk about a product, which was an interactive history book. It wasn't really like fit into the marketing, but he really looked to me as somebody that he could work with and collaborate with. He put his values on truth, And there was one moment at the end where we were walking West Point, and he said to me, the work we're doing right now is going to save lives. Don't lose sight of that. Don't allow data and engagement and these things and the look and feel to make you forget you are helping people learn how to save lives. And to me, those are the words when I get bogged down with a lot of things that they inspire me every time. How do you get to the crux of what you're trying to do? You can be good and still be profitable. And based on our current culture, shifting from cancel culture to accountability culture puts it on what you are trying to accomplish and why. And if you stick to those values, you'll always be successful. And so for me, he was somebody who was a truth teller. And I really respected that, even when it was really hard. And so for me, that's an inspiration. On a funny aside, inspiration, I wanted to be CJ Craig from The West Wing when I was growing up. And that was actually for UNO, that was my scholarship entry, was writing as if I was the US press secretary. And so for me, it was about making systemic change and what can communicators bring to the table, because we aren't just selling products, we're communicators first and foremost. And so to not reiterate all of what my panelists friends have said, those are two sort of alternate inspirations.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. All right. What is an example of a project where you disagreed with the client's feedback, and how did you handle it?
No one ever disagrees with client feedback. What are you talking about? No, for me, it's never about the feedback. It's about what their concern is. So anytime I get feedback that I'm like, that doesn't quite make as much sense in the grand scheme of things, it's usually about aligning to what are you trying to accomplish? Do you feel like that call to action is getting lost? Is that what you're trying to fix? Because if you can help a client understand what their actual concern is, you can sometimes adapt the solution to that. So it becomes a lot less about agreeing or disagreeing on feedback.
For us, all of us, we lead professional services firms, right? We get paid to provide best advice. And as long as, we are standing on solid ground around what is right for the brand and for the business, that's what we're there to do. That's how we add value, I think. And will there be objections and differences of opinion? Absolutely. And do you have to, maneuver through those with all the little tips and tricks of really hearing what they're saying and all that? No question about it. At the end of the day, it's their money, it's their decision to make. It's not to say that, you roll over, because, again, you've got to ensure and protect the value that you're there to deliver, which is a confidence in a point of view. I think that agencies, yes, they're selling marketing communication solutions, but I think they're selling confidence too, and all of the ways that we can deliver that are really, really important.
Yeah, and I would just echo, it's our job really to, I think our fiduciary responsibility to share our knowledge, because they are paying us a lot of money, and they've worked really hard for that. And if they could do it on their own, they probably would have. So they came to us, and if we have a lot of reverence for the knowledge they have and the work that they've done, but also a lot of responsibility to make sure that we deliver on what we promise them. And so I've had plenty of clients where they may have disagreed with an approach, and I usually try to bring it back. We're research-based marketers, so I usually try to bring it back to data, so to make it not personal about, what does Marianne think, or, one of my team members think. It's more like, what's the right thing based on what the customer data is saying. And that seems to be a way to sort of take some of the emotion out of a tough objection, because, and truly, when somebody objects, I really listen hard because I do know that the choice to go with an agency is a big choice for them. And so there must be some reason, there's some motivation behind the comment. And so I try to uncover what that is, but then I don't, like my colleagues, I don't get swayed because I do really think it's our responsibility to do the right thing. And again, but I've definitely been in lots of situations where they win the jump ball if we've gone back and forth enough times, because I at least feel like I've made the case and shared that and not in a rollover fashion, at all, like Greg was saying, but at the end of the day, they might know something about the business or what's going on in the business that I'm not privy to. And so I have to honor that. So it is a little bit of a dance, but I think, if you're aligned at a business level, what's the goal? What's the objective? Why are you here? And even if it's a brand conversation, there's a business objective behind it. So if we can kind of uncover that, then we can get some context around maybe why there is a hurdle or why there's an objection, and then try to find a solution. I mean, we're problem solvers, and that's what we need to do every day. And so there are times when I notice either a client or even an employee or myself maybe not using as many critical thinking skills around how to handle the objection, and I'll really light that up because I want to make sure that we practice. It's a muscle that we have to have as consultants and as, managed services and professional services. It's important to critically think and help your clients to critically think, because there are complexities in business that can be handled through connection. So
just one tragic mistake that I've seen a client make in not agreeing with the agency recommendation. We were in a meeting with RGA presenting to Nokia, and RGA presented an apps-based interface for mobile devices. This is before the iPhone. And Nokia is like, why would we do that? We're a hardware manufacturer. We're the handset manufacturer. It's not about the interface. It's about the brick. 5 years later, the iPhone. It's like, so they're not always right. Oops.
Yes.
Twitter's a fad. I had a client tell me that once.
All right. Going back to your first job or your just out of college job, what advice would you give yourself?
The best advice I was given out of college that I took heed to was do what's asked and then ask for more. So much of your experience from school builds your basics, but I ran an HR department in college. I did collection calls. I was there to be like a accounts receivable helper through college, and asked for more and got a lot of experience. So I would just say, regardless of the job, and if you end up at something that's maybe not an agency, find your way into it. Do what's asked and then ask for more, because the more experience you have in various different ways, the more context you have for what we were just discussing. Being a marketer is more than just advertising. And so understanding and experiencing things out of the gate is probably the most important advice I got, and what I would share with everybody else.
Share your thoughts. Don't be afraid to share what you're thinking. It's so important. Throughout my career, you can tell when people have things that they're thinking that they're afraid to share for whatever reason or another. And just trust your instincts, trust your knowledge, and have confidence, again, being able to put it out there. We are an ideas-based business, and those ideas come from human beings, and, only when you're able to share those in an environment where, they can be heard, understood, and built on, that's how you get there, right? And once you start doing that a few times, it doesn't always go well, but that's okay. You learn from that, right? And sometimes you touch the stove and it's hot, so you learn a different way to approach it. But sometimes it works, and you build a little bit more confidence. So, you're there for a reason, and just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, trust your instincts. Nobody told me that that was a good use of my time when I was in high school or college. And I've learned through my career that, it's just one of the tools in your tool belt. You can't be the only tool you use, but it's definitely, you've got a gut on something, you need to trust it. And so I wish I would have known that. I didn't know it. It was a happy accident, but I worked all the time when I was first out of college. I mean, I lived in Sioux City, Iowa. That is not where I wanted to live. That is not where I saw my future. And I hated it. And so all I did was work. And it was the best decision of my life, because all that investment in myself and in my company that early on became the annuity stream for what I have today and what we have, and so I didn't understand how important that amount of work, because you really are, you are such a sponge at that time that the more heightened sensitivity and fear you have around something you don't know, then the more you retain it. And so the more you're working, the more you're experiencing, learning new things, and people notice the people that work hard, and the right people usually notice that. And then you get opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have gotten if you were trying to have more balance in your life. So while my answer is never popular among those that want balance, the fact is that I don't think I'd own OBI today if I didn't work as much when I was really young, because I wouldn't have gotten all the opportunities so early in my career. And they've paid that annuity, not financially, but like just in experience.
All right. Was there a career setback you faced which you later realized was actually an advantage?
I got laid off from my first agency job. That was a learning curve. Greg said it, our inventory is ideas, which means people and hours. And the agency world is built on accounts. And as accounts come and go, as owners, our goal and as leaders, our goal is to keep that insulated, but sometimes things just happen, so the agency I was working for had lost its biggest account at the time. There was 5 of us that got let go. And I took it extremely personally at the beginning of like, I worked so hard, like how I was doing my job. And that to me was a blessing in disguise. I ended up visiting my brother in LA, and he was like, why not apply here? Like, why not try something different? And so I don't know that I would be where I am if I hadn't lost that first job and had to come to terms with, it wasn't me failing. It wasn't the agency failing. It was just a matter of the business, and gave me an opportunity to think about what I really wanted to do, and where I really wanted to explore. And so for me, it was a blessing in disguise for sure. And it also gave me eyes wide open in the industry, to not take those types of things. We've all lost clients that we love that are still friends to this day, that it wasn't the right fit anymore. And it gave me a real perspective for that throughout my career. So, don't take those things as personal setbacks. Take them as there's an opportunity for you to look for something else that's maybe different, that's going to expand what you can do.
I got fired from my last job before joining Bailey Lowerman. I was the U.S. president of RAP. It's the biggest job of my career. I was overseeing 4 offices and about 700 people. And I got fired for doing the right thing. Reported our global CEO up to Omnicom, which was the holding company, because he was doing things that were damaging our business and putting Omnicom and RAP in legal jeopardy. And that was a very difficult decision, to put everything that I had worked for to get to that kind of place at risk. But it was worth it, because it was the right thing to do. And it was the right thing to do for the business and the people in that business. And, so it was incredibly stressful, sleepless nights, and a lot of articles written about, what happened and, all of that. But, at the end of the day, it galvanized my belief in just doing the right thing, and so I would do it again.
Yeah, I've had lots of setbacks too. And we were working within a big client, and we were in their office, and we were doing a project, a really big project for them. And the sponsor retired during that time. And so there we were with kind of this strike force team. And they hired a new president. The president wanted to go a different direction, and said they didn't need us anymore. And so basically fired, but they never fired us. They just let things go. And so I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have this awesome team, and I don't have any, I don't have any other prospects, no prospects. This is like as OBI was starting. And I just said to the team, okay, you guys, like, we figured out how to sell digital home in 360, at that time it was Gateway Country Stores. Somebody else wants to know how to figure out how to sell digital homes. So we got to stay together. Let's figure this out. So my ex-husband says I'm the only person that ever got fired but wouldn't leave the building. But I knew that if I left the building, that I wouldn't run into the people who might want to know what we knew. And so I did everything from sweet talking the security guards to let us into the conference room to, augmenting our revenue to pay my people by going to Chinatown and buying knockoff purses and selling those in the back of my car in the parking lot, just because I knew that if I stayed where I was, there would be someone I would run into. And that's what happened. We ran in, Intel showed up one day and said, hey, I heard you guys have figured out how to sell digital home to the masses. You want to do our strategy? And then Microsoft, and then HP, and then I had to leave. Then we had to move out of, it was Gateway, their office, because by that time, the HP was a competitor. So I think that resilience and sort of that, I didn't know the word grit even was a word back then, but I think that's been, for better or worse, one of the things that has served me in my life. I'm dogged. I will not let a good idea die. Even at the cost of becoming a knockoff purse salesperson. So anyway, there've been lots of those little things in my life, but
if you're failing, it's not over. Just keep going.
COVID,
you can't fail if you keep trying.
Gosh, when COVID hit, like when this started, I was like, no, this is not happening, because the financial crisis, I'm not doing it that way. I'm doing it a different way, because that hurt bad too. So I feel like, that's, I guess, wisdom, maybe getting older, but there's a lot of these in your career that are going to happen. You just got to keep pedaling.
Awesome advice. When you guys are looking at portfolios or resumes, what is the most important thing you're looking for, or what really stands out on a candidate's portfolio or resume?
I'll go quick. I like activity. I like to see people that have lots of activity, not, I am a very focused person. And so I look for people who have a lot of activity and like good energy around them. Because I like hiring people that have good attitudes. I would much rather have a good attitude than the smartest person in the room with bad attitude. So that's me.
I can train for skill, but you can't train for like Marianne was talking about. It's not even just attitude. It's like curiosity. Are you somebody who doesn't allow somebody to just give you an answer? How do you show that in a portfolio? Really setting up sort of what was the problem you saw and how did you solve it? It could be you ran some social media editorial for a friend's band. Like, I want to see that you can identify opportunities or problems and that you can apply and be curious and figure out and problem solve. So examples like that, to me, skills are great and they're sort of the bar that you have to meet to look at it. But what I look for is what's the person's perspective and how can they contribute as a part of a team? And that comes with, being curious, being passionate. People who really love what they do, it's not about work-life balance, it's about integration. And I think, for me, it's finding people that are fascinated by it and are driven by that, because that'll stay with you in an agency setting for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree with all those things. The only other thing that I would add is evidence of risk taking. We are in the business of creating new things, ideally new things that have never been done before, and so I think having the confidence to take those risks in different aspects of your life, positively, of course, and to be able to demonstrate those things is really, really important. So evidence of that in a portfolio or in a resume, I think is really, really important, in addition to that passion, right? That is evidenced through prolific thinking and creation of things, is what it's really all about. This is not an easy business, and you have to have that passion to, motor through, and to be tireless in how that you're thinking about things. And then when you get in front of me, smart and nice. Those are the two things.
That's what we learned as interns. The first thing Greg told us, be smart and nice. Always carried that with me. All right. Where do you guys see the industry going in the next 5 years?
Well,
First, we got to get out of this pandemic. 2020 is the year that never ends. I would say for me, I think we're going to see a lot of things from this pandemic that change behaviors over time. My grandmother started ordering her groceries for delivery, and now I don't see her ever going to the grocery store again. Not because she can't, but because now she's understood it. So I think as people and behaviors change, what we'll see is brand is really just communication. Communication is brand. And in the past, it was very much, reputation management, and brand equaled this sort of feeling and who you were. And then there was product marketing over here. And I think all forms of communication, including your audience's communication, become a part of your brand. And we're going to start to see the fragmentation of digital start to come back into where communication is truly brand.
This year started off faster and probably bigger than any other year. And so I feel like there's some pent up demand in the market, and people are tired of the pandemic. And so, what I also have noticed is that people want things even faster than they've ever wanted them before. And I don't see that going away. And I've been sort of talking about it to my team for years, like, look, it doesn't mean they don't care about brand, but it's a lot quicker serve than it used to be. And so if you can't move faster, you can't allow yourself to be 90% right and 10% maybe, you're going to be left behind, in my opinion, because the world is so fast and our memories are short, that you can do quicker serve creative. I know no one wants to hear that, but it's true. And I'm dealing with it right now. And I think that that's just going to continue to permeate. And I think we're going to see more people be interested in having sort of a centralized approach to their marketing plan, more obviously integrated approach. But I think there's so many individual, I don't know the right way to say it, but individual kind of tactics today that people try one and that doesn't work. And then they try another and then they get frustrated. They're like, it's supposed to all work together. I don't know how. So you've got to have somebody who understands how this all works together. They might not be the expert in all of those things, but I think there's got to be a quarterback to the relationship that can help them kind of navigate through, because there's a lot of changing parts. And I think we're also going to see from an agency standpoint that clients don't want the same agency model. They want a hybrid, or they want maybe even managed services from us. So I think that's what we're seeing.
To build on what Mary Ann said, I think speed is super important. And I think also increasingly we will see this sort of design of agile brands that are really quick to read and respond to what's happening in the world around them, right? And it may be in a competitive environment, it may be with customer sentiment, that can be read in real time. It may be something that happens in culture. But, this idea of brands being built, on these big lumbering, rigid campaign ideas, are increasingly going to be a challenge, and but brands that know who they are and can operate, at pace, and sort of reshape themselves, while being authentic to who they are is going to be something that's really interesting, especially as brands hopefully take on more of a leadership role in society and have more commentary and views on what's going on.
Awesome. If you could use only one form of paid advertising, what would you use and why? Billboards, radio, social, specific digital ads? What would it be?
Search. That's my answer. I'm done.
I mean, that is a good one, because you get voice in there, you get mobile in there, you get that's the zero moment of truth. Brilliant, ditto.
I always want more, so I'm going to say search and social. Sorry.
We had someone talk to us yesterday about some student who was trying to get an internship, and he used search to tag all his favorite creative directors, and he got offers from all but one. So good choice. I'm sure that would be great. What are some of your favorite books and podcasts, both personally or industry related?
I book wise, I spend so much of my time on business related things. So most of the time it's either for entertainment purposes, but I've gotten really into memoirs. It gives you kind of a diversity of thought when you get to explore in somebody's own words. Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. If you have audio, he reads it himself. He performs it really. He does his mother and his grandmother's voices, which are worth it. But it really, for me, helps sort of my own diversity of thought and to break through and to be able to share in those experiences. But that one, I would say, for me was I laughed, I cried. It was probably the best book I've read in the last few years. But in that same vein, I love a lot of memoirs. So Sally Field's new memoir is long and brilliant, but when you get to see people from what was actually happening versus what you know of their life. I found myself understanding people better. So memoirs are great. Podcast, I have to plug the Bozell Then and Now podcast. It's awesome. Subscribe and save. It goes through all different team members, and we've had partners like Joseph Connect from Proteus Engage come on and talk. So I would keep up with that one.
I read Harvard Business Review every month. I'm that dork in the room, and but I love it, and because I learn from other people's experiences. So and I don't know, I like it. I might, this might date me, but I am reading Marketing Rebellion right now, and I love that book. I feel like I'm mad because I feel like I should have wrote it, that kind of feeling, like we align. So I like that book a lot. I like some of the McKinsey podcasts, and I love business. So anything business, what made this work? How did this start? Any of those kinds of podcasts. Children's has an awesome podcast, shameless plug there too, but they really have a great podcast that we help them with. So I listen to that.
Got like 5 books by my bed, none of which I've finished. I'm like 50 pages into every one of them. But I mean, one that I'm reading right now that I really like is a book on some of Winston Churchill's initiatives around what he called ungentlemanly warfare, and how they were thinking in completely innovative, asymmetric ways on how to defend England and push back the Axis in World War II. And it's a book about creativity and innovation, applied in a completely different and way more important and pressing way. So
in that vein, if you haven't listened to My Own Words by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Audible on that's amazing. They actually have her speeches and her giving her speeches, but it's also co-written by friends of hers. And for the Queen of Dissent, I have been listening to that sort of chapters, and it doesn't go linearly, so you can kind of drop into what you need to hear or whatnot, but in that same sort of vein, learning from somebody who's in a completely different role and position, but thought leaders first have to be thought creators, and she was an originator of thought. So that one inspires me a lot.
Awesome. So I know that a lot of agencies, since we aren't back in the office yet, aren't offering the same internship programs that they had before. So do you guys have any advice for students to gain some experience during this strange time?
We had to bin our internship program last summer, but we did a virtual boot camp anyway. I think it's important for us to figure out ways to engage students, and think about any form of value that we can deliver, and it wasn't, a 2-month program. It was 2 weeks, but it was intensive. And, I hope those who participated got something out of it. We still keep in touch with them. So at least there's those relationships. So we don't know what we're going to do, if it will be in person or not, but there will be a thing.
Some point this year.
That's all I got. There'll be a thing. That's what it says on the planning document, is the thing.
Do a thing when the thing is
yeah, exactly.
I love the idea of a virtual boot camp. I was just going to say, similarly, our internship program is generally the full summer. So last year that was sort of nixed, and oftentimes a lot of our internship program ties around College World Series, and we always have a couple of dedicated interns that help work with the NCAA and our press team and all that. But obviously last year that didn't happen. This year it looks like we're going to have it, but it's going to be a different sort of way. And I want to make sure that I provide value to the intern. And when you don't, it's one thing onboarding people virtually, but you want to have the interaction with people so that you get something out of the internship. So what I've been doing is informational interviews. So it's not about a job interview, but like making time to have a virtual coffee for a half hour and discuss things, building up those sort of resume items with friends and small businesses. And there's a lot of opportunity to get some of those experiences. And so I don't, say connect with people in the agency world, ask for those informational interviews, get a half an hour with somebody. They might have something. We do a lot of work with nonprofits that's pro bono work, and we might be able to find a project or something to leverage and use. But those informational interviews work well. As far as traditional internship programs, we are not planning on that this year, but we might do something similar to what Greg mentioned, like a boot camp or a 2-day sort of session. We just haven't quite figured that out yet.
Yep, I would echo the same. We put our program on hold last year. This year, we're not sure. We have a bunch of jobs open right now for community managers, and I keep thinking maybe there's a opportunity for an intern there. So if there's somebody out there that's listening and thinks they can do community manager work, you could send us your resume. We'd love to look at it. But my advice would be that you do find a few businesses that you admire and think about, if you're in advertising or marketing communications, look at their business and think about what you could do to help them, and then tell them you'll do it, and then do it. And you'll be surprised how many people they'll share that with. People don't do that very often. They don't say, I want to help your business grow, just because I want to help your business grow. But by you doing that, that will help your resume grow. And you never know where that opportunity might lead you. So I would say, think about businesses you want to work with and tell them you'll work on something free for them. And I did have a guy many years ago say, I want to be your intern. I'll do it for free. We did not need interns. I didn't want any interns. And I took it because he was free, and he worked here for a long time. He got a job. And so, get creative.
Awesome. Kind of in that same vein, we have a similar question. Someone says, I am a specific graphic design major. Any advice on how to get to know the agency workings or how teams operate to make me a more well-rounded candidate to join your team? So maybe just kind of, how do you do your initial research on an agency to see if they're the right fit? What advice would you guys have to get to know agencies?
I'd call somebody, kind of like Jackie was saying. I would call somebody to see if I could have coffee with them, virtual coffee or whatever. And I spend a lot of time on the internet doing research on companies. And so I think you can get a lot of information on culture and, visuals if you dig around enough. SlideShare has always been one of my favorite secrets. There's usually a presentation up there that can give you some background on a company. So I would again, you're at this really cool point in your life where you can really do and be whatever you want to be. And so, but it's up to you how far you want to go with it. So if you want to work at Google, or you want to work at Bailey or Bozell or OBI, figure out how to get that job. And that is by getting to know who those people are and deciding whether that brand aligns with your brand. And if it's a fit, then let them know that you want to work there.
Yeah, I think, yep. Look, design is part of the creative process, right? And if you're curious about the design process and how it works within an agency, there are a lot of books out there about the process of creativity, or lack thereof, but you know, it is an iterative process. You know, it is a thing where you're, you know, you start with a fresh pencil, and hopefully by the time you're done, there's just the eraser left, you know. And you know, so I think that there is, you know, the psychological components that you've got to get used to, you know, in the creative process, which is where you start is probably not where you're going to end up, you know. And to have a thick enough skin to be able to take on feedback, you know, and just learn about the grind, you know, and prepare yourself for the grind that is creativity, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of books out there, you know, both in advertising and beyond, around you know, how to get the most out of your creative self, and you know what that process can be.
Yeah, I would mirror those thoughts. I would also say I learned strategy in a sort of backwards way. I was managing a client relationship for a media agency, and I had to review all the reports and the reporting, and I really dug into all of those things to be like, oh wait, why is this way? And oh, when we did that for this other movie title, this happened. And so I really learned from the ground up, and allowed my sort of, that looks weird. Why is that weird? Asking those millions of questions of why. And in the design category, oftentimes the difference between being, you know, a designer and an artist is the constraints that you have put on you in advertising, which I like to lovingly call, you know, opportunities to do something different. But there are constraints. I mean, we all three of us have worked in highly regulated industries. Compliance is going to tell you, you can't say that, or that thing can't be, that has to be bigger because of legal purposes. And so some of what I would encourage is sort of reverse engineer it, write your own creative briefs, start to understand the why behind it, because a lot of times that's what kicks off a creative process. And so really understanding, what are the mandatories? What do you think the mandatories were for these ads? What was the key message? If you look at all of the pieces and parts, and start to reverse engineer your way backwards, because that will help you understand who and how you work with a copywriter or a creative director or a production manager or a production artist or a developer. Those are all sort of tied back into that, what I would consider creative brief. And there's a million different versions, and every creative director has their favorite version of a creative brief, and every other creative brief is terrible. But at the end of the day, they're all kind of the same general thing. So I would encourage you to understand that, because that's the sort of conception point for any design project.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us today. And I think we want to do a part 2 sometime. So everyone be looking for that on the AAF Omaha website. And then we are about to get ready for our next keynote. But until then, if the 3 of y'all wouldn't mind dropping in a way that students could connect to you in the chat, whether it be through LinkedIn or email, just a way that they can reach out. And then we will be back in about 7 minutes with Matt Augustine, who is the director of Cool Shit at the FaZe Clan. So don't want to miss that. It'll be really, really fun. And thank you guys again.
Thank you, Marley.
Thank you.
honestly, that right there could have been our keynotes, and all three of them could have individually been our keynotes. So it was jam packed, but also super excited to us. Matt's portfolio includes brands like NFL, Adidas, Tinder, Activision, Blizzard, Miller Lite, Jim Beam brands, Under Armour, Google, General Mills, Coke, NFCU, and many more. He's a son of I apologize. He's a son of a Haitian father, and we'll talk about that in the interview, and a father of two Huskies. Matt resides in LA, leading brands and creative strategies in gaming for one of the most famous groups, FaZe Clan. Although it's not really working, seeing as he's a gamer himself, he is loving his new job, and he's going to tell you all about it. Matt's mantra is to make dope shit and make dope shit happen. Find him at www.thesocialnerd.com.
One. So perfect. I'm here with Matt Augustine. Did I say that right?
You sure did.
All right, with FaZe Clan. So appreciate you talking to these young professionals virtually. It's a big event to get them into the workforce place. And the big topic right now, everybody's talking about esports. So we'll start out. I want to know a little bit about yourself, but how'd you get to FaZe Clan and what's your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about myself. I've actually been in the role for about a month and a half now. So brand spanking new, but jumped straight into the deep end to figure it out. I made my way into this role by way of advertising. Actually, my network has been one of the best things throughout my entire career, where I, got connected with Adam Bauer, and he reached out, and next thing you know, one thing turned into another, and I got this opportunity. So I absolutely jumped at it. So when I came into the role, my title was Brand and Creative Strategy Director. So what does my day look like? It's everything from talking to, these blue chip brands like the Verizons, the Nissans, the G Fuels, the Beats by Dre of the world, as well as talking to, our talent, these guys that started this amazing organization over a decade ago, talking to our creative team, our content teams, and finding that happy medium, finding the red thread of ideas that keep both parties happy, because obviously you're going to have those deliverables. You're going to make sure that you want to line up strategically to what the brand wants. But let's be real, this organization was started by some guys with some big, strong personalities. So you want to make sure we're still authentic to them as well. So really balancing the thread between those, coming up with ideas that help, make sure that they walk that red thread. And yeah, my day-to-day, it changes depending on what brand I'm running at, but it's pretty much a grind from, as soon as I pop open this laptop, and I love it.
Perfect. That sounds awesome. So like you indicated, the big thing that you said was networking. Why do you think networking is so important to you? And what advice do you give somebody that's more, I would say, introverted or shy and feels like they can't network?
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this next comment not as me being ignorant, not me trying to be cocky, but it is a bit of a humble brag, but I think it just speaks to the testament of networking. I haven't openly put out an application for a job first since 2014. And by that, I mean, like my first two internships that I landed, I obviously was applying for those, just trying to break way into the industry. And once I got in, there's been some crazy things that have happened throughout my career, but honestly, it's just been people that I've stayed in touch with, people I've gotten to know that have put me in positions to just continue to win, where, it's almost reverse engineered most of the time, where they'll be like, we love you, we just want to bring you in, we'll figure out the role. Or, hey, we were hiring for this role and someone mentioned that, your name was someone we should, look into. So let's chat a little bit. And so that's how a lot of these opportunities, actually all of these opportunities, again, since 2014 have blossomed for me. Now, someone who's introverted, it's weird, take with a grain of salt, because when, the lights, camera, and all that turn on, I like to think of myself as a performer, whether it be back in college when I was stepping for crowds, whether it be when I was even younger doing show choir singing, or I'm in a boardroom presenting to, a CEO or whomever. It really doesn't matter. I know how to turn it on. But at my core, I have introverted tendencies. That's really when I recharge, when I'm by myself, when I'm doing things that don't honestly involve other people. And it may not seem like I'm nervous or awkward, but I actually am 100% I just try to, again, turn it off because I turn on my entertainment mode. So for me, one of the biggest things was just tapping into something I loved, and it made it so much easier. So I just framed everything as, look, the world is literally my stage. So when it's time to show up, I'm going to show out. And that makes a lot of my fears move to the side. Now, there are people out there who may not have those sorts of things. So my advice would be, what is something that you are extremely passionate about, and how can you double down in that area? So for example, there was recruiters that I stayed in touch with for months upon months, even when there weren't opportunities available, because we both were fans of Big Sean, the artist. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that you can find to make the conversation flow a little bit more naturally, and start to look at these people as someone you would go grab coffee or a beer with, versus someone you're trying to form a business connection to benefit on. And once you change that filter, it makes it so much easier to network. So yeah, again, since 2014, I'm a living testament to it. And just find something comfortable that you can lean into if you have those introverted tendencies, and then just keep working at it, and it'll start feeling natural.
Definitely. I think with this time frame, especially with Zoom, there's a lot of do's and don'ts with Zoom calls. Like me, I might be breaking it because the background's pretty loud. But at the same time, like, I love seeing stuff like you have Haiti on your wall. So what does that mean to you? Like, that's a good talking point. So I want to learn more about why Haiti's on your wall.
Absolutely. So I actually, right before we got on, I was like walking around my apartment, like, what do I want to show in the background? Do I want the Brooklyn Bridge to show in the background because my nickname is Brooklyn and everyone calls me that? On my personal side, do I want to show this because my father was born and raised in Haiti? My mom was born and raised in Georgetown, Guyana. So, somehow they met in New York. I don't ask too many details. It's none of my business. But that being said, I just always like to bring, you brought it up. It's a talking point. And whether or not someone has family from Haiti, a lot of people can identify with different stories, and people get excited to hear those stories. So any chance I get to really emphasize something from my past or showcase something that makes up who I am, then that's what I do. When I'm in my office, my vision board is in the background, because if someone asks me, that's a constant reminder to keep, keeping at it. And if, I haven't updated it in a while and someone's like, oh, that looks like the same goals from, like, again, it's that constant push. I just like to put things around me that are going to get me excited, remind me where I came from. And when it comes to your point on like Zoom etiquette and Zoom backgrounds, it's weird. Through this pandemic, and again, I understand I'm not ignorant to a lot of the misfortune that many people have faced. For me, though, I will say through this pandemic, I had the opportunity to really lean into myself authentically, because I couldn't always turn it on, as I talked about before. Like, yes, it's a little bit of being a chameleon when I walk into different rooms, but when I'm in a pandemic and my meetings are from, and I'm sorry about that noise in the background if you can hear it. But if I'm going to be in front of this computer screen from sun up to sundown, there's only so much faking it you can do. So it's like, you know what, I'm just going to be myself. And I started leaning into that more and more during the pandemic. And you see that through how I talk, you see that through like the types of things I put in my background. And again, it makes conversations that I get into much easier, because now it's not this cold thing where we're staring screen to screen. I honestly was looking at your background and I was like, oh, I'm kind of jealous. Let me adjust a little bit to see if I can capture anything else. But no, like, I think if you can showcase your personality, obviously you need to have some sort of professional setting, but professional is different for everyone. Lean into who you are, you'll attract who you need to, and you'll, deflect those that don't need to be in your circle anyway.
Yeah,
I talked a
love
lot
that.
around why I had Haiti in the background. I realized that as well.
No, it's definitely right on point, because I think, like, even if you have phone conversations, it's always, how's your day? What's the weather like over there? But now with Zoom and video, you could pick pieces. Like, okay, you got, like, if someone had a Cos doll in the background or a Jordan shoe, you can say, oh, I like that too. So that's awesome. But leaning more towards the brand, and you said like brand integrity, how do you guys go through like what companies you're going to work with, and then also like brand ambassadors? How do you guys pick who those are?
Yeah. So when it comes to who we're working with, I'm coming in a little bit on the tail end of things where, we just wrapped up our year with these last brands that we consider our renewables, the ones that we want to go after in the next year. So again, the ones I named earlier, the Verizons, the Beats, the Nissans of the world, the G Fuels of the world. So when it comes to them, it's about, all right, most of them are pretty familiar with who we are. They know who we are, but they're also familiar with, our way of working, the type of energy that the guys bring to the table, where it's very rock star type. And I love that energy from them. Now, when it comes to these new brands that we're trying to land, one thing that I've been doing a little bit more of, because I do sit closely with the sales folks and they're throwing RFPs, requests for proposals, my way often. And sometimes there'll be brands that come across our plate, and it was weird because, again, like I said, I've been here for a month and a half, but the more I learn about this brand, the more I can start to, weed out what's right for us and what isn't right for us. So there'll be a brand that'll say, look, we want to give you X amount of dollars to work with us. We want to use talent that meets this criteria here. Here are the do's and don'ts. And then it's a moment of, is this brand for us? Sure, the dollars would be nice to push us to the next level, but are we going to still be FaZe Clan? Are we still going to be authentic? And I mean, again, regardless of who you are, even on the agency side, when I was working at 72 and Sunny, we walked away from a couple pitches because it was just like, this brand doesn't make sense for us. The dollars aren't going to equal more sanity. It's not going to make those long nights easier. If anything, it's going to make everyone miserable and make us question what we're doing here. So for me, it's really figuring out, okay, yes, this brand would be awesome to work with, but does it make sense for us to partner together? That's one element of it. Obviously, we have the brands that we've been working with that we want to keep working with because they've been amazing. But then when it comes to new brands, what I'm really trying to inject into this process is, who can we go after that when the world sees these sorts of partnerships, they're like, oh my goodness, like this should have happened already. Why has this not happened? Or even some that make people just, their heads explode because it's just so monumental and it sparks another revolution. So that's how I look at it when it comes to partnerships. When it comes to ambassadors, we have an amazing team of people behind us. We have an amazing Discord server too, where there's just a really, really awesome community of people that are always contributing, always helping us out with so many things. So our team is able to go through and sets out some awesome people who can, really start to grow and be a part of this family as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's probably a lot of people watching this right now that love esports. They play games. One thing that they're trying to do is build content for themselves and grow. So when you have a new FaZe Clan member join the team, like how do you build them up on social media? How do you build that content so they're the A-list players on the team?
Absolutely. And there's a couple different routes. And I'll speak to one of the ones that's my favorite, and that's FaZe Academy. And FaZe Academy is going to put them through the sort of training that they need, not only sensitivity training, but also, look, if you're going to be a streamer, if you're going to be a content creator, whatever it is, this is how you show up. This is the types of things you're going to have to deal with. This is how you carry yourself. So there's those sorts of things in place. But on top of that, they also have a talent team behind them. They have a marketing team behind them. Then they have the powerhouse of FaZe behind them in general. It's funny because I'm technically on the suits side of things. And I know I don't look like a suit, but I really am when you look at the grand scheme of it. And there's a team full of us on the corporate side too, trying to really help, whomever this is that comes into the organization out. So being able to go through that process. And of course, we have our competitions too, like Phase 5, where it's a global competition where anyone can compete to get into Phase. But once you're actually in, the way that the team rallies around you and our talent team is so incredible. And FaZe Academy is something that I'm excited to continue to grow as well. It's just awesome to see how that's built up. And again, so many people think, you're just going on your stream and you're starting and you're just playing all the time, or you're entering in these competitions because you were really good and now you have a team with you and you're kind of doing your thing, but they don't see the underground what's happening. They don't see behind the scenes what's happening. And it's just so amazing to be exposed to that now. And again, I just have to credit the talent team for doing what they're doing. And I love that FaZe Academy is something that's going to continue to grow this new talent.
That's awesome. Is there like the opportunity for like someone to buy a FaZe Academy package, like $100 YouTube video, like how we bring these people up, or what do you go to for like recommendations? If someone's like, I want to be like your team, how do I be like your team? Like, is there certain games you're like, you should practice on these games first, or is there certain content, like how do Twitch content, things of that nature?
Yeah, so I can't speak to, actually becoming a full-fledged member by, paying a certain amount. I don't believe that's something that can happen. However, you just look at the roster of games that we're playing and take it with a grain of salt. I'm coming from the brand strategy, creative strategy side of things. But what I would do if I was, a young streamer, a young content creator is, again, I would look at the sorts of games that they're playing. I think one person specifically that you could look at is FaZe Scope. FaZe Scope is one of the guys that just made it in this last Phase 5 group. And he literally is like the epitome of what it means to be a FaZe fan and then join the FaZe family, where he's been playing games like Call of Duty forever. He's been doing things like the quick scoping and sniping and things that FaZe members originally really got famous for. So you look at those titles like Call of Duty, Fortnite, FIFA, especially if you're talking international. If you want to start talking esports as well, that's FIFA, that's Counter-Strike Go, that's Rainbow Six Siege. So it's those games. And I would just say start to keep sharpening those skills. But everyone's not going to be the best, let's be real. And trust me, I'm speaking from experience. I gave up PC and keyboard a long time ago, or mouse and keyboard a while ago, in favor of console, because I realized I could fare a little better in that space. But I will say there's still, room for people to flourish, and whether that's with FaZe or not on the content creation side, it's just a matter of really figuring out who your brand is and how you stand out. So I would start to not only research those titles that your favorite organizations are playing, but research your favorite players and watch their journey and watch their story. And when you talk about FaZe, one that I think a lot of people should really check out again is FaZe Scope, just because FaZe Scope's journey has been so amazing into the organization. So that would be my advice, without being, privy to those conversations that happen on the talent side.
Definitely. I see one of the partnerships is Verizon. We had the opportunity to talk to Nigel. He leads Riot 5G Studio. So is there any conversation with Verizon 5G getting an upper hand advantage, things of that nature?
When it comes to Verizon, that partnership, I'm trying to think of what I can talk about on this call. But overall, I will say, I'm super stoked to really talk about this partnership and what they have to offer in, just the gaming space in general. And why do I say that is because, again, this whole call I've been talking about, it's really we want to work with brands that it really makes sense. We're not going to just sign the dotted line and cash the check just to keep the lights on. No, we want to make sure the lights are on in a place that we actually want to be in. And admittedly, on the outside looking in, if you would have told me Verizon was a sponsor, I would have been like, huh? The corporate telecom? I would have expected someone else. But when I had a chance to honestly meet the team and see some of the things we're trying to kick off in this next year and just everything like that, it was super exciting. So I will say that there are big things on the way. That's as much as I can say, but I'm super stoked to work with that team. And again, it's one of those things where once you get to know people and you start to understand where their head is, and then again, pulling back, these may be their deliverables, these may be their objectives, but what makes sense through the filter of FaZe, and vice versa when it comes to the ideas we're kicking back to them. So it's been super dope to work with them, and I'm really excited for what we do roll out next. And then hopefully we can touch back on this conversation in a couple of months and I can speak much more transparently about that.
Yep. So for the young professionals watching, that's what's called a non-disclosure form. So we can't say what's happening because we might get sued. So totally get that one. So that's another gem for the young professionals watching. Obviously, esports is growing with rapid fire pace. So you see it on ESPN lately. You're seeing colleges wanting to grow programs. Where do you see esports in the next, say, 18 months?
18 months, I think it's actually going to be a really interesting time because I am on the optimistic side. I know. So there may be some eye rolls from people watching when I say this. I have faith that not normal, because this is normal. We've been in this for a year now, so let's just call this normal. But I have faith that we'll start to move back towards, being out in public and just getting out and being allowed to do the things that humans have to do, which is socialize. So I honestly think we're going to be at a really interesting turning point where we get to see if this is for real. Because once the world starts opening back up and you're not stuck behind screens all day, are you still going to be tuned into these people playing video games all the time? Personally, I think absolutely. I think it's one of those things where it's not something that was just filling the void. I think it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually kind of dope. This is actually kind of cool. And that's why it's been pulling in more viewers and more eyeballs. And I don't think that's going to taper off. So over the next 18 months, I think we're going to see that. And now it's going to be a matter of, okay, now brands and the rest of the world are going to really start to believe, okay, this is something that's here to stay. Now, what's my role in that? I hope over the next 18 months, I could really start to push it where you just said it yourself. It's been on ESPN, but there's a lot of people that look at esports as something that its name says in it. Like they say it's not sports, but it's literally called esports. And you just look at how esports drives a crowd, how esports, like the fandom of it. Like I remember a long time ago when I was working at another agency and we were working on a pitch, we were diving into what made sports. And we started breaking it down the same way that you almost break down religion. And I won't do that here because I don't want to offend, but I will say is when you look at esports and sports in general, a lot of those similarities are there. So I think over these next 18 months, we're going to start to see that staying power that esports has. Like, it's not something that's just filling a void during the pandemic. It's something that's here to stay, and it's just going to start to seep more and more into mainstream culture.
Definitely. And I think with that, just reviewing the website and all the content you have, the merchandising you guys have is just A plus. So can you tell me about the process of who does the designs, what merchandise you're putting out with? Like me personally, I like the little stuff you don't see all the time, like the slides. You guys are doing slides. We know you guys are going to do like controllers and chairs, but where do you guys get those ideas from, and what gets to get pressed out?
Love that. So first off, I'll give credit to our merch team. Xavier is running that team and doing an amazing job. For those, he's probably going to be like, what is all this LinkedIn request? So look him up on LinkedIn, y'all. Just type in FaZe and Xavier and you can find out the rest. But basically, outside of his team doing that, for me, it's how do we think of the gamer first? And I'm just going to throw out a very, very bad example so I don't give away any ideas that we have kicked around during the team. But what's something that frustrates gamers all the time? Let's say, again, I'm going to just shoot for the moon and say something that's non-existent so I don't get myself in trouble here, NDAs. But when we're playing video games, we get lost and hours go by, right? And all your responsibilities, you have to take care of them, and you can't pause online gameplay, right? What if we created the first thing that could pause real life for you? A remote where you could just press pause on your dog barking. You can press pause on your significant other asking you to take out the trash, and so on and so forth. So that's where our heads start to go with merch, where it's like, how can we do something? Of course, we've done, to your point, the controllers, the chairs, the things like that. Now we're in a place of, we're going to keep being able to crank those things out. We're going to keep partnering with really cool and amazing streetwear brands. But what else can we do that's going to actually help the gaming community? And that's where I've been trying to come in strategically. Like, look, we know that lumbar support is the thing. How can we start incorporating some cool things that actually take care of that? How can we make sure that we take care of their health? How can we make sure that we take care of gamers, losing track of time and playing all day? Those sorts of things is where my head goes when it comes to merch. But beyond that, again, we have that amazing merch team that's just been cranking things out left and right.
That's awesome. Like I said, amazing merch. Make sure you check out the website. Hopefully there's coupon codes out there or something for the young professionals. But definitely, I just want to take it a step back. You said, just really taking a step back, you said you haven't applied for a job since 2014. But when you did apply for the job, what do you think stood out on your resume? Like, what helped you get that job?
Honestly, I think it was a tenacity at that point in time. And I wish I could go back and tell myself that cranking out 20, I think I was doing 20 or 30 applications a day. So just that tenacity, that persistence of always doing it. I don't know if I can call out something specific in my resume that really made me stand out. I think it was the sheer volume. But that being said, what I would have done entirely differently is something that I think led to me not having to apply for a job in 6-7 years is I try to meet at least three people in every organization. And by that, I mean, not just a recruiter, but someone who potentially could be my boss, someone who could potentially work under me, someone who's on a team that I wouldn't even touch, but I'm just inspired by something they said. And for me, what that has done is your resume is going to pique, recruiters' interest if there's content and they're like, oh, we need this for the team. But let's be real, they're going through so many of those and everyone is plugged in now. So I think once you click apply for a job, and this is a little harsh, I'm sorry to say, I think you're already lost if that's what you're banking on going to be the thing that you got the job. If you have those connections at the organization, that's when people start to remember like, oh, Matt is a great person for this. And then that's when I started slipping in my branding, the social nerd, the social nerd, the social nerd, just making sure that it stuck with people. So whether or not my resume caught anyone's interest, the fact that I knew certain people got me in the room, my branding kept me there. So I would go back and I would talk to myself and say, look, you can keep cranking out all these applications, but what are some things that you can do to make yourself stand out? Who do you need to know to make sure that your name gets brought up in these conversations before the job application even hits the website for the world? And what I mean by like branding myself beyond just saying the social nerd, again, I'm extra. I don't know if y'all can tell by my energy, I'm always on 10 for the most part, but one thing I did when I was talking to 72 and Sunny originally, it literally happened because someone, shout out to Brittany Allen, like an amazing friend that I've had forever since my first internship in 2014. she literally threw the oop for me at 72 and Sunny. It was just a conversation at 72 because they didn't have any openings. Right after I got off the call, I sat there and I cranked out a deck that made it look like you were booting up the game of Call of Duty, but campaign mode was my story. My loadouts were like my different skill sets.
Wow.
Like that's what I mean by leaving them with something that makes them remember you. And again, I'm just extra. I do that. I've talked to mentees though, who he was a fan of Pokemon cards. So he created Pokemon cards around his skill sets and shot them to different creative directors. Like there's different things that people can do to help themselves stand out. So I know it didn't answer your question directly about what did I do to stand out back then, because I think honestly, it was just a sheer volume. And once they got to talk to me, I think my personality carried me through. However, going back, I think I could have saved myself a lot of pain and stress if I would have focused on the relationships and focused on how I wanted my brand to be remembered after I had those calls.
Oh, no, I actually really love that answer because you bring up a valid point. It's a mixture, like, I think obviously college and education is important and you need to have that, but it's the what you know and who you know. And I think there's a stigma if you want to network, you got to dress in a suit and you got to go to an event. But the reason why I'm saying all this and leading up to my next question is you're big on community outreach. And I think that's a great networking opportunity. Can you tell me about, FaZe Clan's community outreach and then even your personal community outreach that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as I got to FaZe Clan, they're like, hey, look, we have a diversity and inclusion team. Would you like to be on it? Yes. And number one, like, let me take a step back too. I'll say this because I'm comfortable in the truth as well behind it. When I first had my perceptions of FaZe Clan before, I got in the weeds of the organization, admittedly, I was like, there's not many people there that look like me. Like I didn't think I was going to be, there would be a lot of people that were brown skin in the room. Let's just be real. Let me just call a spade a spade. However, when I actually started day one and I started meeting the team, I was like, holy, this is a really, really diverse team and I love it. So one of the first things they did is, invite me to that diversity and inclusion team and catch me up on the initiatives they were doing. Like we had partnered with Adidas a while back and donated a ton of shoes to charity. We were working on building, and I believe this is still happening. I need to check in with that team, but building basically a center where, kids who normally don't have access to the type of technology that you need to even get into the esports and gaming world. Like, let's be real. As a young Black kid with two immigrant parents, for me to ask them to spend thousands of dollars on a computer, like I'm not going to try to make fun of my dad's Haitian accent right now, but basically he would say, computer, what? We have a Windows 95 right there that works just fine with the big back. What do you mean? And so like we're trying to, build out different community centers and things like that where we can actually, make sure that these people who normally don't have access to these things do, so we could really start to change the face of it. And that's something I've been passionate about forever. I mean, every role or every organization that I've been in, I've stepped into something involving diversity and inclusion, because without those sorts of community or outreach things, I wouldn't even be here. One of the first internships I had, the one that really gave me my catapult and everything, was the Marcus Graham Project. So I just remember what everyone did for me, and then I just try to do it for others. And then honestly, there's a little bit of selfishness to it too. I benefit as well because of the connections that I just get from doing it. So FaZe is continuing to do it. We're again always trying to figure out how do we shift the face of gaming? How do we continue to diversify the face of gaming? But it's something I've been passionate about since day one, and I'm going to keep pushing to do regardless of what brand is behind me. It's just me, and that's what I believe.
That's awesome. And you bring up a good point with diversity and inclusion. We went to actually promote last year's Meet the Pros events, and someone asked me a question, and they said, well, when I was doing the scroll, I saw there was nobody at that agency that looks like me, so I didn't even apply. So I said, I had to take a step back. I said, can you tell me what the scroll is? And it's like, yeah, I look at the agency's website and it's all, let's be honest, predominantly Caucasian male. And like, I know if I apply, I'm not going to get the job. And I was actually I worked at Verizon Media and did the employee resource groups with diversity as well. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. How do you think we actually put it into the tech diversity gap? Because there's a big conversation about that. It's like, well, if it's 3%, we did our job, which I'll get off my high horse. But yeah, if you could tell me how you can, how we can end this tech gap issue that we're having, like what type of programs need to be put in place, what type of opportunities?
Yeah, and it sucks because it's such a long, it's gonna take a while. It's gonna be a long process. And I understand, that there's gonna be frustration because in today's day and age, especially where everything's digital, everything is magnified. So the fact that these organizations aren't diverse, nothing's different about that. But now you're just seeing that amplified that these organizations aren't diverse. So I think one of the things that's being done in the right way, which again is a longer term process, is really attacking it at, the root level at the core, really trying to make sure that you're bringing more of these diverse people into this tech space as young as you possibly can. Because a lot of times, especially when you look at these Black and brown faces, they're being told, for me, I'll use myself as an example. With two immigrant parents, it was either doctor, lawyer, teacher, engineer, or if I was super athletic, then it would have been an athlete. You know what I mean? Like that, it's just, those are really the only routes. And then of course you start looping in like music and dancing. And I'm not saying those things aren't valued, those things aren't needed. They absolutely are. Art makes the world go around, in my opinion. That's another conversation for another day. However, no one is championing tech like that really. And I mean, it's starting to happen more and more, but if we want to really change that face of it in the future, we really have to start young and really start approaching it there. However, on the flip side of that, the uncomfortable part of it is we're just going to have to start figuring out, okay, where can we start to truly change these boards? Because to your point about the scroll, it's, for me, the scroll never impacted me from a standpoint of like, I won't apply there or I don't want to work there. For me, the scroll impacted me from a standpoint of, I know this job is temporary because you're not going anywhere. And if you're not going anywhere, I'm not going up. And then you layer on top of the fact that we've been talking about this the whole time. A lot of the world and a lot of this industry is based off of networks and relationships. And while, yes, at the surface level, you can be upset that it's the more of the same faces coming in and out, in and out, in and out. But let's again take a step back and look at it. It's their relationships. They're just connecting and putting on for people in their circle, and there's no one in their circle that looks like myself. So that's when you have to start having those uncomfortable conversations. Like, look, we had a great C-suite that's been knocking it out, that's been doing an awesome job. But what roles can we afford to potentially swap out with someone who has, whether it be a diversity of thought, whether it be diversity when we're talking about ethnicity, whether it be diversity when we're talking about anything, like that's when you have to start having those uncomfortable conversations as well. That's just really hard to have because now you're like, it's a group of millionaires looking at other millionaires or however much money they want to have. And it's like, all right, cool. Who's going to step down from their job? Not me. So is it going to be you? No. So then do we bring in someone else? And then you bring in the role of chief diversity officer, which again is a different conversation for a different day. I think, our best two avenues, and at least the easier one, but it's going to take a lot more time, is attacking it when you're talking about getting young kids excited about tech, and how do we reframe it in a way that makes you realize this is an awesome job. And I know I get a little bit rambly, I'm sorry, but one thing that I think was an awesome example of that is, I don't know if you've been on Instagram or TikTok recently, and you'll see like this guy, he'll just go up to someone and be like, hey, what do you do for a living?
What do you do
And
for
it'll
them?
just
Yeah.
be people in like beautiful cars.
Mhm.
And for me, it's like, if I would have saw more of that when I was younger, that probably would have excited me to lean into STEM. But I always saw, if you're not a rapper, you're not an engineer or something like that. And for me, engineer was like school. It was boring. It wasn't like you can have the nice things and be flashy like the rappers and entertainers can too. So reframing that conversation, getting young people excited about tech is the long but easier way, in my opinion. And then the hard upfront conversation for C-suite, and hard for them, not for us, obviously, is who can give up their roles, who needs to give up their roles and get out of the way to bring in new blood and energy. That was
Definitely.
long-winded, I'm sorry.
No, definitely. You hit it right on the head. And the C-suites, the board of directors, everything. And then who's organically doing that, or who's getting actual pressure to do that? And that's where I kind of see some things as well. But with COVID and everything, working from home, finding talent, does FaZe Clan and other companies, I know you're in the Los Angeles area, are they actually looking for more people, maybe in like where I'm from, the Omaha market, or say like Louisville, Kentucky, or Des Moines, Iowa? Do you see more people in the Midwest having the opportunity to work from home, but their jobs in LA or New York?
Yeah, so I mean, on our sales team, we have someone that is actually out of New York. So I have never met him face to face. And it's interesting because I am a morning person. There's some people on the team that aren't. And I'm just always balancing in my head, like, okay, cool. if I want to get a conversation done with this guy, then we probably need to chat before 5 my time, because it's selfish to hit him up at 8 p.m. his time. So all that to say, like when it comes to at least, the corporate side of things, when it comes to the staff, depending on the role, depending on your team, I haven't seen any obstacles to it. I know when we were looking for a graphic designer, we were looking for someone in Los Angeles, but that was because they were going to be in lockstep with me. And, it'd been easier to just bounce things off of them when the world opens back up, whenever that is. However, I'm not going to say that there are any barriers on where you can live and work, because I've seen it happen. And maybe I'll get a slap on the wrist from HR, but my whole thing is, when you look at the way that the world has still been working just fine, I don't see a valued reason other than the camaraderie and the energy that you get of being in the same room with someone else. But we can still do our jobs from remote locations. So, I mean, again, people are spread out all over, especially since it's the pandemic. There are some people who have gone back home or traveled all over the world to go work from there. But most of our team is out of Los Angeles, New York, and then spread around based on where our talent is. And our talent's all over the States. So.
Definitely. And I love how transparent and open you are. It's great because you said slap on the wrist from HR. I think my hand's still bruised from my time in corporate. But anyways,
They're gonna be like, you can't answer for that. I'm like, I just spoke for my knowledge and my standpoint. I mean, all that to say, though, I will say this for those of you watching, and this is just my advice in general, and it depends on how you want to view it. And I would actually like to know your thought about it. But my advice is, don't limit yourself on where you're applying based on where you live. You can always figure it out later. And again, some people may say that's shady. I do want to call that out. That is definitely a valid way of looking at it. However, I look at it as being someone who's adaptable, because let's say you find a job in California, but you live in Texas, but you have someone in California you can go live with, or you can figure it out, like bunk up with 3 or 4 roommates out here. Like there's a way you can figure it out. But if you tell them up front, nope, I live in Texas and I'm never leaving, then that eliminates you for no reason. So that's just been something that's helped me too throughout my career, of just putting myself as like, I'm willing to work wherever the opportunity lies.
Definitely. Well, I definitely appreciate your time, Matt. I always try to end on a light note. So I'm going to try to do some rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Favorite video game console?
Xbox.
Favorite video game of all time?
Call of Duty, Modern Warfare.
Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. Let's favorite spot to eat in LA?
Oh man. Leo's Tacos Truck.
Leo's Tacos Truck. Oh, I'm taking a note right now. You brought up
super simple.
You brought up cars. Favorite, if you could have any car in the world, what would it be?
I would get 2. Can I answer 2?
Sure, why not? We'll do 2.
Okay. Cadillac Escalade EXT. I know it's a gas guzzler, and I know they don't make it anymore. And then my second would be a 78 Lincoln Continental.
You got good taste. You got good taste. So.
Those would be my 2. Both of them would guzzle gas, and this is not the state to do it in, but would love them if I could afford them.
Well, you can always drive them around in Omaha, Nebraska. A lot of our audience is from Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri. So we have gas guzzlers everywhere, but we're getting the Teslas.
They are everywhere out here. I'm like, I would get too distracted in that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the nap mode to start on those so I can take a nap while I go to work. But
I wouldn't complain about that.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time, Matt, and look forward to carrying on these conversations again. And like I said, I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And I'm an open resource. So if anyone ever needs anything, connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out. Would love to chat. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Perfect. It was a great experience to interview Matt. Hopefully everyone got great insights in esports and FaZe Clan. We'll keep the program rolling. AAF Omaha's community outreach team has been working this year with a team of volunteers for diversity and inclusion programs and projects. In August, AAF Omaha formed a partnership and fund and focus to closing the diversity hiring gap, starting with our very own marketing and advertising community here in Nebraska. Culture House is here in Omaha. It is one of the 4 organizations we partnered with this year. Culture House is an innovative community hub that focuses on providing artists and creatives a safe space to grow their talent and obtain access to resources necessary to turn their art into economic opportunities. The Culture House exists to bridge both social and economic gaps through the talent and artistry within the inner city. We welcome Marcy Yates with the Culture House today. Marcy will give us a clear picture of the Culture House's mission to create a safe space and grow talent in entrepreneurship.
Culture is alive and thriving in North Omaha, and Justin Marcy Yates is at the helm.
So my role in the Culture House is to be able to identify needs and wants within the community, but also within the community of our artists and our creators and our entrepreneurs.
Marcy Yates hopes that this will bring about positive change for the community.
It was not like this even 2 years ago.
Marcy Yates hopes that the development will bring forth new businesses to the area.
There's gonna be some new businesses. What? I'm not sure. You know, as far as some new community centers, I know that that's coming. Across the street, we have it's a vacant church across the street.
Marcy Yates hopes that the church will be renovated and that a new community center will be taking its place.
Her plans for that is to be a community center. I know that there's plans for the OIC building that's right here up the street on 24th Street too. That used to be a resource development center, like training center.
Marcy Yates says the Culture House was just one of many steps needed to be taken to revitalize the area. He hopes that more progress will come in the next few years and that the area will continue to flourish.
This is just one piece of revitalization. There's other components, you know what I mean? But we're kind of just taking that jump start with arts and entertainment.
For the Omaha News, I'm Stoyan Kresovich.
We're here with Marcy Yates from the Culture House today. I have a little bit of bio. So we have event promoter, podcast extraordinaire, musician, community activist, model, artist, fashion designer. Am I missing anything?
Man, oh, that's a lot. Yeah, no, I mean, you hitting them on the head. I like that. Go ahead, keep talking.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to the young professionals today for the Meet the Pros event. I know you're really big in the community. You're the owner, you're the mind behind the Culture House. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Culture House and what you guys have going on?
Yeah, the Culture House is a creative space designed for artists and creatives, obviously, also activists and members of the community. What we do is provide resources and opportunities for advancement. So what we try to do is close the bridge, like the gap between social and economics, basically. So,
so when it comes to the Culture House, say if I'm just moved to Omaha, I'm a young professional in like graphic design, advertising, marketing. I want to network. How do I network? Does the Culture House have hours? Tell me more about what's inside the Culture House.
So in Culture House, we have quite a few different things. So we have a shop in there, which we call like our thrift store, where we sell clothes and we sell records, host local makers, items on consignment, things like that. Also, we have a workspace designed for creatives and others that need a space to work out of, whether they need a place to do their Zoom, or they need a place to study or organize or meet or be in a workshop. Then we have a podcast studio, which is used for audio production as well too. So you can follow us online. This is kind of how Instagram, Facebook is kind of the way to like directly reach us. But we have a website which is culture.house. So it's CULXR.house. And from there you could inquire about usage of the space. If you need to rent it out for, let's say, an event, workshop or do a pop-up event, for your business or whatnot. But those are kind of the main ways to get a hold of us, to kind of stay up to date with what we're doing. Just follow us. We're always posting all the time, kind of putting that information out there. Ways to get involved and stuff like that.
Perfect, man. You also, when you indicated organizing, can you tell us about some of the events you're organizing from a art standpoint, but also from a community activist standpoint?
Yeah. As you know, prior to COVID, we really invited a lot of artists to do shows. We hosted a lot of things that were art based. But since then, we transitioned into doing workshops for organizing, such as like protesting, um, uh, things about knowing your rights, things about social justice, just spreading that awareness and trying to have impact in the community as well too. So that's another thing that we're doing in terms of organizing. But also, this year is important for elections, just like last year was too. So we definitely organized around getting out the vote, which Kevin, because me and you, we did the ride to the polls last year. So this year, that's something that we're focused on as well. We've done a couple of candidate forums where the community can get to know the candidates that are running for mayor and running for city council. We have a women's candidate forum coming up next. We just had an event this past Tuesday in partnership with the union. It was called Redesign the Red Line or Undesign the Red Line. And it was talking about the elections coming up, but also redlining in the community. So if you know anything about redlining, that's something that still affects a lot of Black communities till today.
Yeah, I think both you and I travel quite a bit. A lot of people will say, "Hey, Omaha is definitely a cool spot," but it's kind of weird, like how it's split between like predominantly like North Omaha being African American, South Omaha predominantly Hispanic, and people say, "Why is that?" So, for people tuning in and watching this, can you explain a little bit more about what redlining is and how that shaped Omaha?
Yeah, so basically what redlining is um, certain laws and policies um, that that separates definitely separate races in class. So these these things don't allow growth in the community. Doesn't allow investment, um, and um, that's basically what we're dealing with right now. Down is just old policies and things to where the disadvantage was created for those in the community.
Yeah, definitely. And you bring up a very solid point because a lot of people say doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. It's like maybe even when I was a little bit younger, I was like, it doesn't matter because people, I can't pick the president. But the Culture House is an amazing spot because um, really you need to look at your community and figure out who you're voting for in your community to rise to the presidential level. Is that correct?
Yeah, it starts with that. It starts with your local community. So often on television, like mainstream media, the focus is always on the presidential election, right? And then the president, some other country or something like that. But rarely do they, and even during, when you're going up through school, they don't talk about local politics. They don't teach you about your local city council, your local, mayor, um, things like that. So it is important because it starts there.
Definitely. Also, I feel there's like a stigma with Omaha. Like, if I want to make it big, I have to leave Omaha, or no one's big has ever made it out of Omaha. Can you touch base with some people maybe even in the political field now, and then also artists and musicians that's on a national level from Omaha?
Well, okay, so easily on a political level, Simone Sanders. She's from Omaha, and she was working with Joe Biden's campaign. She's on his team. So that's that's one easily. We talking about in terms of like in like entertainment. I mean, Gabrielle Union, John Beasley.
Yeah.
Um, we talk about like what sports. We have quite a few guys from Omaha right now that's just like hanging around in the NBA, from Kyrie Thomas to Justin Patton to even what's the name, the boy from UNO, couple of the boys from UNO. They're hanging around. You know what I'm saying right now. But we even have more people that have had success in sports from Omaha. From the Bob Gibsons to the um, Marlon Briscoe, from UNO, Kamon Green,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
so many,
There's so
dude,
much.
like so many. So yeah, so I so much.
Yeah, there's so much great talent. And I think even me, if you asked me that question when I was 23, 25, I would have been like Terrence Crawford and Warren Buffett. But as you get older and
Yeah, right.
you start being a part of the community, you know a lot of these great people that are from Omaha. So want to make sure to talk about kind of the graphic design side at the Culture House, talk about how do you market yourself. Kind of touch base with the James Skurlock. I have the shirt here. So where did this
Hey,
idea come from, and how did you market it? How did you help the family and help the political cause there?
okay, so with with us with us, primarily being in creative art space, a lot of artists, it becomes a collective. You have a lot of creatives. So when that happened, artists were using their platform, in a way to raise awareness by using their art. So that's what artists were doing. So what we wanted to do was continue to give artists a platform that you know that otherwise wouldn't be seen. So that's where it started from. What was just us sharing other artists that were trying to be allies and share. But that photograph there was like, all right, this is really nice. Um, this is really nice. We should do. We should put this one on the shirt. You know. So we all know like that's just like one of the common things, just like in culture. When someone dies, you put them on a shirt. You know what I mean? So nothing different from that. That's what we did, and it was just like, hey, the more people that's wearing this shirt, the awareness is out there because we want much people to know about James Fair like it's possible. So that's where the concept came behind it, and so we reached out to the artist, asked her was it okay to use our image. We use it on that shirt and we use it on our protest pamphlets too. That we're handing out so people can know their rights about protesting. But that's where the concept came from. So then, rather than charge, it's like we're not trying to make any money off of this guy. What we want to do is we'll donate proceeds, so and reinvest them back into the movement, which is material supplies, and to the family. So that's kind of what the concept and kind of what we did with it. We still have a bunch of shirts left too. I sold a lot of
Yeah, no, definitely. I know you guys made a lot of shirts. A lot of money went back towards it, so definitely a good cause. So I'll throw out a scenario. I'm a young graphic designer. I want to network, but I don't want to dress up in a suit and hold a portfolio and walk around town. Like, how do I, as a young artist or a young professional, how do I get my name out there in Omaha without having to feel awkward?
I think I think don't see it as you have to do something by yourself. You know what I mean? I think it's better to be a part of something and then shine like in your role. or gain experience or enough cash value capital to then do your own thing. You know what I mean? Like it takes time, but if everybody would kind of get with something that's already kind of going and that's like up their alley, it'd be easier. So I think for a designer or whatnot, find an organization that you like, and then see what if you can work for them, or just do things for them. Sometimes maybe it starts with pro bono, but sometimes you gotta work your way in, but they know they can depend on you. Then they'll go to you every time. So that's kind of what the thing is. So make sure your work is quality. You can get it done quick. Make sure you're accessible, and don't be afraid to reach out. DM, that is the quickest way to get a hold of people.
Definitely, yeah. It's an interesting time frame because we got so many social avenues. I can reach out to somebody on LinkedIn. It could be Instagram. It can be Facebook, email, call, text. So you bring up a valid point there. When it comes to pitching ideas, have you ever had a time where like you just were so passionate about an idea and you pitch it to somebody and they kind of like said, "No, this isn't for me." Like, if so, how'd you bounce back from that?
All right. So, so man, you see how Culture House been performing, so that was definitely the bounce back. So when I was first trying to get any kind of like support for my idea on like a stage, like it's just saying, like pitching, right? Like when we start off, we had the word of mouth, the underground kind of thing, but then you gotta turn it into, what I'm saying, like a business. And so then you want to make sure you have your paper stuff right. You want to make sure you get, you want to learn from, businesses, but you want to kind of get into that, that realm. So I had opportunity to do a couple of like Shark Tanks, right? Where you pitch your business idea. And this was in competition with probably like eight other businesses. And like the 1 through 3 was like $10,000, $5,000, $3,000. You know what I'm saying? Then like the lower level don't get like, we can't they get like get in. You know what I'm saying? So so the first one I did, man, I gave my pitch, bro. I got like shot at. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm trying to pitch Culture House before all of this, like that people see now. You know what I'm saying? So I had less technology than I have now. I had less equipment than I have now. I had less space than I have now. I had less followers than I had. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I had less support than I had now, right? And so I'm like trying to get them to see this space that I'm like trying to have. You know what I'm saying? They just didn't get it, dog. You know what I mean? And so they're like asking me, and like I didn't really know much about numbers and stuff at the time either. Like budget projections and stuff like that. So I kind of just got shot down, bro. So I came back again. There was another one, and this one was at the Highlander on 30. The Highlander on 30th.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So we do it there. Bunch of people. The panel was like the CEOs and owners of whatever, and then the people like that attending are people from foundation. This is where I first met Katie Weiss from the Weiss Foundation, and so it's like even if this panel is not rocking with me, just all these potential people out here. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I didn't realize until afterwards, right? Because after I still didn't place top 3, I came back and I thought I came back stronger, bro. And I thought I killed the dude. You know what I'm saying? But yo, I still finished like last. That shit. Sorry. I still finished like last, bro. You know what I mean? And it was like out of pity they still gave me $1,000. You know what I mean? And I took that $1,000 and I put it down on a new building for Culture House. So that's exactly what I had did.
Well, yeah, bounce back was strong, so you're doing good now.
Yeah.
You bring up like maybe lower budget to start out with and not having the equipment. But with these young professionals coming into the workforce, like what programs do you recommend them either already knowing, or what do they need to look into, like a Photoshop, or like what do you think?
I personally, all right, so I feel this way. So depending on the level you're at, if you're blessed to get a Apple product like iPad, iPhone, um, Mac, then you can definitely use the ready apps that's on there just to get started. Those are great user-friendly ways to get started. If you're already been doing it for a bit and you like want to upgrade from using just those apps, I would always say go towards the industry standard, which is Adobe, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, uh, also Final Cut for video editing. But I would stay in those realms in terms of like software. Sorry, in terms of software, Pro Tools, Logic, it's for audio production and recording. Um, but if you're into no, like Procreate again, that's for like illustrating and stuff like that. But also like don't be afraid to use apps on your phone, like download from the App Store or on your pad. There's just like a lot of cool apps that's out there now that are really user friendly, but they're really cool and have some cool effects. But also, it kind of cuts some steps too for someone who doesn't know anything about video editing but wants to do videos. Then I would say, hey, get one of those apps that kind of like you can just upload your own clips, and then it kind of you can choose filters, choose different effects, and kind of help guide through. Because honestly, right now in this day and age, you're just looking for something for like content, something cool, something quick. Man, you don't have to be this major, um, crew behind it. You know what I'm saying? But you might think that after this thing is posted. You know what I'm saying? But that's just the reality behind it, bro. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are building do a lot of things by themselves or just with with other people. So, I would say that, man. If you got the funds, then go ahead and get the industry software. If you don't, use the apps that come on your product. I would always recommend using Apple products for creative, just because they're built like that. You know what I'm saying? You get your money's worth because they already come with the apps and then operating system. You know, so
Definitely. Uh, to switch gears a little bit, I'm always interested, like, who do you look to for guidance? Who's your mentor, or like what podcast you listen to, stuff like that, to bounce ideas off of.
man, since I do so many different things, right? So it just depends. So if today is the day for fashion, then I'm like listening to Virgil like Abloh, you know, or probably just him right now. I like his perspective a lot. If it's a day where I'm just like, food, like I got this, like I'm either watching Bon Appetit or I got this one guy. I don't know, I don't remember what his name is, but I'm watching him a lot lately. Though he just go around and he just trying like all this really good food in different like neighborhoods and bodegas and stuff. I love food. You know what I'm saying? And when I travel and stuff, I try to go to a good place and take some cool video. Almost do something like that. You know what I mean? Um, if it's music, bro, you know, um, I'm just tapping into cats that I listen to a lot, like Currency or whether it's Lupe Fiasco. I've listened to him a lot lately. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, it's just different. It just depends on which genre what it is. Of like a part of my life. I'll just tap in, bro. Like yo, the last couple of days I've been watching just old Def Comedy Jam, like when Martin used to host from the '90s. Man. Old
Bernie Mac.
Showtime at the bro, yeah, and old Showtime at the Apollo. You know what I'm saying? Like I get inspired by all that kind of stuff. Though. And then honestly, just kind of like some of my elders, like in the realm, I kind of look to. Um, just kind of people who've done it before me. So people who've ran organizations, I kind of look up to them, try to hang around them, try to learn more about it. And people who've kind of been on the arts a little bit longer.
Definitely. To kind of slow the pace down and kind of wrap things up, but where do you see the Culture House 12 months from now? What are you guys going to be doing?
we will be looking at the next location in like another city. We will have we'll have completed the capital campaign for purchasing the current building now. I definitely will have a successor. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not day to day, or flying and handling the business, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Putting out the music.
I hear you on that. It's just hard to let go of the reins sometimes because it's your baby, huh?
Yeah. It's like it's not where I know that something's not gonna get moved around. So I gotta I want to fasten these bolts. Just some bolts I gotta get fastened. So I know that things won't move when I'm not there. You know what I'm saying? So that's all, man. So we almost there though. It is my baby, and it's been a project, and it's been a very unorthodox hospital building, but we almost there.
Perfect, man. I'm gonna end this on some quick rapid fire questions, and then I'll let you get back to eating jambalaya or what's the creme brulees down there in New Orleans?
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. Can you bring me back something to eat?
Yeah. Yeah, the homegirl asked me to bring her back some beignets. I'm like, is it really gonna be good?
No, probably not. It's good when it's there. So
Yeah,
quick
right.
breakdown, favorite spot to eat in Omaha.
Favorite spot to eat in Omaha, Crescent.
What was that?
Crescent Moon.
Yep, Crescent Moon. Favorite album of all time.
Mos Def, Black on Both Sides.
Okay. Favorite movie of all time?
House Party.
Okay.
One.
And lastly, we're both shoe guys. Favorite shoe of all time?
Ooh, all time. Probably the patent leather Jordans.
Can't go wrong with that one. So, hey man, I really appreciate you, Marcy. You want to share your social medias again before we wrap this up, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Marcy Yates, MarceyYates, and same thing for Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, also on Twitter for Culture House. That's CULXR House, HOUSC. Follow us. Peace.
Perfect. Take care, Marcy.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
If we didn't meet virtually yesterday, I'm Terry Hamburger, AF Omaha's Executive Director. It's events like Meet the Pros that we look to every year and get excited about. Fostering the next generation of advertising professionals is one of AF Omaha's biggest goals each year. For the past day and a half, you've been hearing from our moderators, and now it's time to hear a little bit more from them. We did introduce them during yesterday's, I think it was yesterday afternoon, but we need to hear a little bit more about what each of them do. Marley, Kevin, and Jenna have been leading Meet the Pros this year, and let's just take a little time to hear from these advertising professionals. Marley Cowdery is a copywriter and a wordsmith at Bailey Lowerman. Marley serves on AF Omaha's board of directors. After spending most of her life in Colorado, Marley moved to Texas, where she graduated from Texas Tech University with a Bachelor of Arts in Advertising in May of 2016. And by February of 2017, she'd completed Portfolio School, and hopefully she'll tell us just a little bit about that. She took home a Student Best of Show Addie Award at the Austin American Advertising Awards. Since June of 2017, Marley has climbed the ranks at Bailey Lowerman from copy intern to copywriter, working on projects and clients including Phillips 66, Kindle Motor Oil, Flagstar Bank, Cuties Clementines, and Bosch. Since landing in Omaha, Marley has volunteered her time at Meet the Pros for our event the last 3 years or 4 years. When it's not when it's pencils down, when she's got a little free time, you can find her and her husband cooking, gardening, or walking their 3 dogs. And they really like to do that on trails. Marley, tell us a little bit about yourself, about Bailey Lauerman, the advice that you would share with our attendees today.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Terry. So yeah, as Terry said, I'm originally from Colorado and then went to Texas Tech for school. I did go to the Job Propulsion Lab, which is a portfolio school that I was able to do virtually. So I'll go ahead and share the link there in the chat. Bart Cleveland, who worked on large brands like Coca-Cola, CNN, things like that. He was my mentor for a full year and helped me really build my portfolio to get me to the next level to work at a place like Bailey Lauerman. At Texas Tech, we didn't have a lot of great portfolio building classes, unfortunately. So that really helped me get to that next level that I needed to be at. And so once I did that, I actually met someone else through my portfolio school who had worked at Bailey Lauerman in the 90s. And she loved it. And she was like, you would love it there. You should apply there. So I did. I happened to be in Malaysia at the time. So I did a 2 a.m. interview with Michael Johnson, who some of y'all might have met yesterday. I call him Grandpa Johnson. And he gave me the job and mentored me for about 6 months until he left for a really great role at the YMCA. But just in that time, I know kind of some things that we've learned from the panelists and different speakers. Take advantage of every opportunity that you're given. I felt like I was annoying Michael, but every time I was looking for something to do, I was knocking on his door or shooting him a Slack, just saying, hey, I'm available. Is there anything I can work on? Which led me to actually help on one of the largest commercials that Bailey Lauerman has done in the last few years for Bosch wipers. I got to be in the room with Greg and Carter when I was just freshly out of school and just kind of absorb what goes into making a big TV production. And I pitched an idea that I thought was really silly, and they took it to the client and the client loved it. So it got to go through some testing and I got to see that whole side of it. So don't be afraid to use your voice and speak up. I think because I did that as an intern and showed that I was ready to take on any project, and I was just wanting to be there and really work hard, that led me to getting the job after the internship. And because of that, I have gotten to work on all the clients I wanted to. I kind of wiggled my way in there if I'm not on the client and make it known that it's something I'm passionate about. So don't be afraid to do that. It pays off in the end. Also, something that Bailey Lauerman does is we have a few pro bono clients. So if you get all your work done, you might get to work on the pro bono clients. So that's something I always try to do. Like we do a poster for Special Olympics every year. I've gotten to do that for the last 4 years. It's super fun, really creative. And, you know, the clients are just thankful to have you there helping them out. So they kind of let you run free with the brief. So definitely always try to do things like that. Is there anything else I'm missing?
I think that's pretty good synopsis. Thank you so much, Marley. Kevin, well, first of all, one thing that Marley didn't mention, and we have to, and I think Kevin did yesterday, Marley has the connections. And we are so lucky to have Marley's connections with professionals all across the country that want to help us here in Omaha and also foster the next generation of advertising professionals. Next, I'd like to tell you just a little bit more about Kevin Olive, and then we'll have Kevin talk for a couple of minutes. Kevin teamed up with Marley this year, and they have been working together for months, putting together the last 2 days activities. Doing everything virtual was brand new to us. not necessarily brand new. We were doing and still are doing virtual events, but our virtual events don't typically take on a 2-day conference from 9:30 a.m. until 5 o'clock or 4:30 each night. So Marley and Kevin did a lot of homework with Jenna, and we'll hear from Jenna in a little while as well. But a little bit about Kevin. Kevin joined Verizon Media in 2016, and during his time at Verizon, he onboarded companies like On Purple, Home Chef, and Everlane. He assisted with companies' advertising needs with Verizon Media brands. And we're going to hear a little bit about the Ambiance Store, who is one of our sponsors this year. We can't thank Kevin enough for that. He is a partner with the Ambiance Store here in Omaha. Kevin was born in California, and he transplanted to Omaha, where he graduated with a degree in criminal justice. He's worked for Heartland Family Services, for Boys Town, working directly with youth in the juvenile system. And he has a passion, and it's very evident in everything that he does, to make our community different and to stay active, bringing tech companies in Omaha together. If possible, and I don't know if he'll do this or not, can you show us the tennis shoes you have on today? He's quite a fashion plate and always dressed for success with some interesting tennies. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm drawing him away. Oh, I thought I'd had him queued up and prepared for this one. Well, we're going to have him talk a little bit about all of his involvement. There we go. He's showing off his tennies now. Kevin, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Terry. I don't know if you guys know, I'm a pretty open person, and really I have pretty bad anxiety, especially when it comes to public speaking. I know maybe you might not think it with what you have seen, and Terry already shaking her head. But the reason why I bring it up is if you do struggle from any mental health illness or disabilities, just be aware of it and find ways to control it. So to carry on about me and where I've been, started out in the criminal justice field, helping youth in our community, went over to digital advertising, loved it. I think what stuck out in my interview process is, can you handle somebody cussing you out or yelling at you on the phone if something messes up? I said, that's a lot better than someone trying to punch me or stab me. So I think I can do it. So I joke, but if in the criminal justice field, it is a hard field. So switched over to marketing, and now recently had the opportunity to partner with Alex Cortez, Creative Center graduate. We have a store called the Ambiance Store. We focus on shoes, clothing, the recording studio. We have an in-house photographer, so kind of a one-stop shop. Terry put me on the spot. She knows I like shoes. There's a attendee watching right now. His name's Levi. I know he likes shoes, and he's always out there hustling, doing photography. So shout out to Levi out there. But some shoes I like, I'm a Jordan fan. Jordan's a good one. Recently, though, if you check the news, there's a lot of issues with Jordan and Nike, and the executive son gets all the pairs and resells them. So not a big fan of that. So I brought out some custom shoes. So try to support the up and coming people. This one's Covet, I think. So yeah, but honestly, I can ramble. If you guys have any questions, want to reach out to me, feel free to shoot me something over on LinkedIn or stop by our store. We're right off 50th and Dodge.
Thanks, Kevin. I've learned so much from Kevin and Marley this year and our new virtual platform. If it weren't for the two of them and Jenna and the next person we're going to hear a little bit about, Ann Woodford, this production probably would not have happened. So thank the three of you very much, and Jenna. Jenna had to hop off for a client meeting, and she'll be back on with us later today, but she did need to step away for a minute. I want to tell you just a little bit about Anne. About 11 months ago, AF Omaha easily stepped in a new direction to keep our members engaged and involved with the Federation when the pandemic hit and we had to stop doing in-person events. We've been offering our members and the Nebraska advertising community virtual events since mid-March last year. And it would not have been, we wouldn't have been able to do this without a really flexible board of directors who were ready and able to learn how to virtually command meetings and host events without being in person. And I want you to meet our Zoom back of the house person. Ann Woodford is AF Omaha's first vice president of the Federation, and she's been given this new title. She is our back of house event manager. She and I work together as a team at least 2 to 3 times a month managing the back of the house for an event. She took the reins and learned quickly, as I mentioned. Anne attended the Art Institute in Las Vegas, where she earned her bachelor's degree in graphic design. And after graduating, she returned to her hometown right here in Omaha. She took a job designing shirts and store signage for a local sporting goods company, where her passion for design and marketing flourished. In 2013, she received a job opportunity at Goodwill Industries, Inc. here in Omaha, and she quickly climbed up at Goodwill, and she then went on to become their marketing manager. She oversaw all of the marketing strategy, design, and work for the entire agency, including all of the store signage, billboards, magazine advertisements for 17 retail stores. And she did the direct mail pieces as well. In April of 2019, and I think Anne might share a little story about this as well, she joined the team at Ronald McDonald House Charities in Omaha as their marketing manager. And every day she enjoys looking forward to going to work and helping support the families that Ronald McDonald's House Charities serves. When she's not busy strategizing and supporting her work family and AF Omaha family, she spends her time with her son and her husband, as well as their 2 dogs, Wilbur and Ralphie. And I hope she tells you a little bit about Ralphie. She mentioned him yesterday too. Anne, take it away.
Thanks, Terry. I'm surprised since you said his name that he's not like on the back of my chair right now, but he will be, I'm sure. So hi everyone, I'm Anne. I think I was able to introduce myself a little bit yesterday. So kind of the piece that I want to share specific to this, and this is totally a shameless plug for AAF. Like I love the city that I live in. I love Nebraska as a state. I love the career field that I'm in. And I am very blessed to be working in nonprofit. I did not know that nonprofit was going to be where I ended up. Obviously, I went to the Art Institute, so my degree was very specialized, like many of you. And that was great. That was my foundation. That's where I wanted to be. But when I moved back home, the opportunity opened up at Goodwill, and graphic design was still my foundation there. But then I got to get into social media strategy and advertising, and I really kind of just took on a little bit of everything. I definitely enjoy kind of taking everything on, which many people know on the AF board, but I really enjoy learning. I enjoy being a help in any way. So my story and how I got where I am, I can't remember how many years it's been, maybe 5 or 6 now, Terry. So I've served on multiple committees with AAF. I started, when I joined the board, I started on the communications committee because that's where kind of my strong suits were. And then after a couple of years, I decided I wanted to try something new. So I moved over to the Public Service Committee. You heard a little bit about the Public Service Committee earlier. But when I joined that committee that year, we had chosen Ronald McDonald House as our public service partner for that year. So although I was working at Goodwill full time, my volunteer work and freelance work was done in the evening working on the Ronald McDonald House client project. And I loved both jobs, don't get me wrong. But at one point in time, my contact at the Ronald McDonald House had heard that I was looking for a job, and she basically stopped me in my tracks and said, no, like we need to do lunch. Let's talk more about this. So I'm so very thankful that this worked out the way it did, but because of my connections through AAF and the board of directors and just the committees in general and the contacts that I've made, I ended up getting my dream job just through, putting myself out there and trying to help out in different areas. So I would definitely encourage all students, if you have a little bit of time, we have multiple committees that put together awesome events and do public service work and help grow the membership of AAF. So if you're ever interested, please reach out to really anybody on this team. And we would be happy to share some more detail about the committees and in other ways that you could get involved as a student or even as a young professional after school. So yeah, that's my shameless plug. And Ralphie, come here. He's sleeping, he's lazy. So Ralphie, I gotta turn off my backdrop real quick. Ralphie is my 2-year-old golden retriever pup, who is very tired right now, surprisingly. When I was hired at the Ronald McDonald House, they actually said, hey, you got a golden retriever dog. You want to make him a therapy dog? So I actually now get, because of my job, they paid for the training, and he has gone through training, and he is now the official therapy dog for the Ronald McDonald House. So like I said, it's a dream job, but the opportunity came up and I voiced my opinion and said like, heck yes, I'd love to help in this way. And now I get to take my dog to work every once in a while. So that doesn't hurt either. So yeah, I'll drop my LinkedIn in the comments, but I'm happy to connect with anybody. I'd love to share more information.
Thanks, Anne. We do have Jenna with us, and we're going to work the controls here. Jenna, there we go. We've got her up on the screen. Jenna Baird serves on AF Omaha's executive board, as does Anne. She is our second vice president, and Jenna is an Omaha native. She traveled a short time to the north and graduated from the University of South Dakota with a Bachelor's of Art and Media and Journalism. And during her time at U of SD, she was involved with the American Advertising Federation's National Student Advertising Competition. She led strategy for the Snapple account that they were working on for their competition that year. And in the second year, she led all the components of the campaign development for Taipei, a frozen Asian food. And each year the team that she was on was awarded second place within the district that they competed in with best creative strategy and best digital strategy. I'm going to go ahead and let Jenna talk a little bit about herself and tell a little bit about some of the clients that she works with. And then once Jenna is over, Marley's got some prizes that she's going to award. And we will, I know Alex is here and ready to start his presentation. So we'll get those two things rolling, and then we'll be on with our speaker.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, I won't take too long because I know you guys are all excited to hear from Alex and more about Peacock and all of his great experience. I actually had the opportunity to work with him in the summer of 2016. We were both interns at Bailey Lauerman. So it's great to kind of reconnect, and it just kind of proves to show you that everything is kind of overlaps. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. It's good to connect and stay in contact with people that you have worked with or just know of them and want to share your work or how you can work together and kind of brainstorm something. But I am an account executive at Bozell currently, and I'm working on the Omaha's Henry Doorly Zoo Aquarium and have a big emphasis on energy as well. So I also work with Omaha Public Power District and Nebraska Public Power District. So I really like to just have clear and simple communication with clients and make sure that everything that I'm putting in front of them is matching up to strategy and we're fulfilling on promises that we make. And I think that just helps with having a good partner and being able to bring recommendations to them and work to find a solution that is meeting up against a problem that they're trying to solve. So it's so fun to work with these guys, and hope that you guys are also interested in being able to be more involved in AAF. But without further ado, I'll stop talking about myself and I'll introduce Alex. Like I said, he's no stranger to Omaha. In 2016, he was the client engagement intern at Bailey Lauerman and graduated in 2017 from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Alex started his career out of school in account management at Deutsch, New York City, and was named Ad Color Future in 2019, and is currently a product marketing manager at Peacock TV. So Alex, welcome. We'll give you the screen, and thanks so much for taking time today.
Yeah, well, first of all, hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here. It's funny because when I accepted this a few months ago from Marley, I was like, I'm pretty sure I will see Jenna on this in some way, shape, or form. So Jenna, it's great to see you again, even if we're behind a screen. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about my background. I have a presentation that I wanted to share with everyone listening in. There's this concept that I've been developing over the past year and a half, I would say, which I call dream job hunting. And I feel like it's super relevant for people who are about to graduate from school. Just because I remember there was just such an overwhelming feeling of there's so much to do in marketing and advertising, and figuring out where you fit in that, especially in today's pandemic world that we live in. I want to give kind of some tools and some steps that you guys can take. So let me share my screen. And I hope that I'm sharing the right screen. If not, I will switch it.
I'm showing your presenter mode, Alex. So if you want to.
Yep, let me retry that. All right, give me 1 sec.
We just made you a co-host too, so that ought to help.
Okay, great. Let's see. Oops. All right, is it still the speaker, the presenter view?
It is loading in. Give me 1 second here and I can confirm.
Okay.
Terry or Anne, anybody else, are you seeing a loading screen as well?
Yes, it just says that Alex has started sharing his screen.
Okay.
All right, let's try to restart this. So sorry, everyone.
No problem.
Got it here.
Perfect.
Yep, that looks good.
I just undid it, but let me know if you guys see the title slide and not my notes.
I think we see your notes.
We do.
All right, let me undo that, what I just did. I think we should be good now.
Yes, you're good.
Okay, hello, sorry about that, everyone. All right, well, thank you all for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And as I talked about, I'm gonna talk about something that I call dream job hunting. All right, so that's me. I'm currently a product marketing manager at Peacock, which is NBC Universal's streaming service. So before we dive in, I'm just gonna give you just a quick glimpse of the past few years of my years out of school. So I was born and raised right outside of Chicago, and went to school at the University of Illinois in Champaign. As Jenna mentioned, I spent a summer in Omaha, Nebraska, which was just under 5 years ago. A few places that I will always treasure: Block 16, I miss it every day. The Max, I would love to go back one day. And then the recently opened 3 Happiness Express. I've been following along with their journey, and I'm so happy that they're back. Anyways, so I moved to New York City after I graduated in 2017, and I've been here ever since. So I started my career in account management and advertising. So when I was at Deutsch in New York, I started as an AAE, but was promoted within 9 months to an AE. But a few things that I worked on there. I worked on a 360 global product launch, which 360 just refers to multiple types of communication. So I was leading an interagency team of professional communications, shopper communications, social, PR, and then my agency was the consumer agency of record. I managed a global master website, which essentially is building one version of a website, and my client was AccuView contact lenses that then other regions would be able to essentially clone and roll out in their markets. And one other thing I did while I was there, I founded the diversity inclusion group at Deutsch, which is called Beyond, which is still active today. After my experience there, I moved to Ogilvy in New York, where I was an account executive working on Gerber and then a few Nestle brands. There I managed an in-house social content creation team, and that consisted of going out to the client's office in New Jersey once a week and spending an entire day working on social assets. And I also managed and built landing pages for Gerber.com. And then lastly, I've been in my role at Peacock for just over a year. When I started last February, the big marching order that I had was to take a site and build it. We had just the homepage back when I started. But in the 6 months leading up to 7/15, which is the date that we launched last summer, we had launched with over 2,000 web pages. And then as of today, we scaled that to over 30,000. So between now and then, I've built a team of 2 web content creators that I manage and have expanded the site. And then this year's focus is all about how we take current site content and further optimize it so we can continue to grow our 30 million and counting subscriber base. And just a few communities I wanted to mention that I'm a part of. I was actually super involved in AAF in the Illinois chapter. So we had the largest chapter in the country for AAF back at the University of Illinois, and I was the president my senior year. Also was awarded, AAF has the most promising multicultural student program that I won the award for in 2017. MAPE is the multicultural advertising intern program, which is essentially the program that sent me to New York and got me an internship to start my career here. And then as Jenna mentioned, I won an award called Ad Color Future in 2019, which is essentially the top 30 young diverse professionals in advertising, marketing, and the tech spaces. So that's a little bit about me. Just to give you a little bit of an intro of what a dream job is and how we're defining it in this presentation. A dream job doesn't have to be the end all be all of all jobs, and it certainly can be. But I think that every experience that you have leading up to what you would consider a dream job is equally as important. And the reason I put this together was because after a few years working in account management here in New York, I realized that wasn't the end all be all path, if you will, that I wanted to be on. And when I made the decision in my last role to start job hunting, I really challenged myself to do the work to understand what I could take from my past experience and bring to a role that I would feel fulfilled in. So that's kind of what birthed this concept of dream job hunting. Because I would tell recruiters that I wasn't just job hunting, I was dream job hunting. So there are 3 elements of a dream job that I want to define for us. First is that you feel supported by your manager and team. I think this is a huge one and probably the most important one because a manager and a surrounding team can make or break an experience and a learning environment. Next, there's an intrinsic motivation to do the work. So this could be in 2 different ways. This could be in either the category or the space that you're working in that you're interested in learning more about, or it could be the type of work that you're doing day to day. So for example, when I was working at Deutsch, AccuView contact lenses, it's not the sexiest brand or client that you would work on, but I did get to lead 2 major productions and pretty much worked on every marketing channel. And that is what kept me interested and wanted to keep going and learning. And the last one here, being challenged in meaningful ways. So this one's all about growth. For me personally, the second that I feel that I'm no longer learning or growing in a role is when I start to look for new opportunities. And how I define a meaningful challenge. When I first started my role at Peacock, one of the very first new skills I had to learn was navigating Adobe Analytics and learn how to build a dashboard in that. That was, I would think, a meaningful challenge because I wanted to actually learn to do that. And something that maybe wouldn't be a meaningful challenge is back at some other agencies I worked at, as an account person fighting over conference rooms for client calls. That is just like not a meaningful challenge that I wanted to keep doing. So today's goal, my biggest goal from today's presentation is that wherever everyone in the audience is in their career search, I want just to give you some insight into some potential action items and some steps that you can take to identify and then secure your own version of a dream job. Because I know that job hunting can be super overwhelming, but I want to at least give you guys a head start. So there's 3 phases I'm going to talk about here. First being a discovery phase, second an application phase, and then last being the interview. So there's a critical thinking and a mapping exercise that I'll walk through that you guys can start doing as of today. I'll talk about some strategies for starting a job hunt. And then when applying for jobs, there's a few resume tips that I wanted to highlight, as well as defining and giving you some tips on how to get the in at a company. And then lastly, when you get an interview, I have some of my favorite interview tips that I share with my mentees, and just some reflection and growth exercises to do post-interview. All right, so we'll start with the discovery phase here. So critical thinking, I would say that effective dream job hunting starts with an honest self-reflection. And as I said earlier, the great but also super overwhelming thing about marketing and advertising is that there are so many different things that you can do. And I know very, very well the feeling of being about to graduate and trying to, 1, understand what's out there, but then 2, look for a job that you feel like you also fit in. So this is what this first step is all about. So I think something that everyone can start doing today is to take a look at their past experiences. This could be a personal experience, a professional experience, and make a formal list of what you liked and what you did not like about that experience. So I'll give 2 examples. When I was in college, I spent a semester as an advertising research assistant. It was 1 semester long, and I love that there were some interesting topics that I learned and got to explore further. And I love presenting it at our research symposium at the end of our semester's experience. What I learned though is I didn't really have a passion for research that I feel like I could do on a day-to-day basis. And organizing studies and getting data and sifting through just wasn't really a passion point for me. Both of these are, I would say, equally important to note. And then one more example from a little bit more recent in my career. When I was working at Deutsch, it was again a global account. I loved working on product and campaign launches. I loved creating website content and rolling that out. One thing I learned though is that being on a global account means that you're on some pretty late global calls. I had calls with Japan, with China, a few calls in Russia, and there's just a huge time difference that you have to usually work late into the night to contact them and get in touch. And the last thing about account management, which is one of the big reasons why I wanted to move to a client-side role, which we'll talk about in a sec, that the client ultimately has the final say in that kind of a relationship. So the goal of this first step here and identifying the types of work that you like and that you don't like, this helps you to start figuring out what kinds of roles you want to search for. It helps you to start being able to talk about your past experiences and what lessons that you learned in an interview setting. And ultimately, the goal of this is to prepare yourself to be able to talk about these things in an interview and then get that job. So the second part of this discovery phase is of this critical thinking phase is responding to a few sets of questions. So this is by all means just a starting point. But I like to ask people that I work with, what does your first or your next job look like? And to write this all down. So these are just a few starter questions. Asking yourself, like from a company perspective, what kind of company do you want to work for? Is it a small company? Is it medium? Is it large? Is it a worldwide company? I've worked in pretty much all of these kinds of companies. And so I could be able to say like, these are the pros of this, here's the cons of this. But it's up to you to note that. What kind of category or space do you want to work in? Is this vital for you or is this a nice to have? What kind of company values are important to you? And what kind of culture will you thrive in? And this is a super important one, but what benefits do you need from a company and what's non-negotiable for you? And in terms of the work, what are you doing day to day or week to week in this role? What do you want to learn in to grow in or explore further in a work setting? And then just some questions about the team that you'd work on. What size team will you excel in? A smaller one or a larger one? External teams, is that something that you want to work with? And then what kinds of resources will you need to be successful? So this next part of the discovery phase is I like to call mapping, and that's taking that previous reflection and turning it into a structured job hunt. So the way to do this, I would make a formal list of any and all companies and then categories that you could see yourself working in, or at least have an interest in working in. And the key thing here is to find out what entry-level jobs at those companies are called. So here's just a few examples of entry-level titles. If you want to work on the agency side, I'm sure you might have heard this, but account management entry-level titles are assistant account executive. Strategy, a lot of agencies call those associate brand strategists. And then creative, junior art director, and junior copywriter. And then on the client side, I've been on the client side for just over a year now. But at an entertainment company like NBC Universal, all of our entry-level roles have the word coordinator in it. PR firm, a lot of those agencies are called assistant account executive for entry-level roles. And if you don't work at a tech company, something like an associate account strategist would be the role to look at. Again, these are all just placeholder titles, and I think this step is all about doing the research to find out what kind of role and what the title of that role is that you'd be looking for. And if you need help figuring out what that role could be, I would suggest reaching out to either mentors, professors, browsing company websites, job portals, and I've had success also stalking people on LinkedIn. There's no shame in doing that. All right, so let's talk about the hunt. So this is all about finding out what experience dream jobs require and are looking for. So what I did when I was looking for this role that I have now is I set up a few job alerts with the titles that I identified in the previous step. And I really challenged myself to make it a part of my day-to-day to read through what these roles were looking for. Just I didn't know what I didn't know. So the good thing about the commute to and from back when this is when we had an office space in New York was that there was a 30 to 45 minute commute time where I could literally just open my phone and read through these job postings and see what they were looking for. And as I would look through these job postings, I would ask myself, do I see myself enjoying this kind of work that the position calls for? What from my past experiences can I bring in to help set me up for success in this kind of a role or in this interview? And are there any gaps in my experience that I should look to fill or be clear that I'm open to learning? So I have an example here of a brand manager job that I found when I was writing this presentation out. And I'll do an exercise, just an example of to show you how to do this. So I would read through these responsibilities. So support the brand director to develop, recommend, and lead the execution of marketing strategy. I would put a check next to that because that's something I had done in my previous roles on the account side and could do it in this role. Analyze brand and competitive trends. I have a question mark there because while I've done that before in my previous roles, it wasn't necessarily a passion point, which I think is important to note. Develop all creative briefs that align with brand strategy. At the time when I was job hunting, I hadn't written a creative brief before, so that was something that I would need to be vocal that I would be open to learning on the job. And then lastly, provide ongoing collaboration, creative input, and design projects with internal external partners. That's pretty much one of the core responsibilities of an account person. So I'd be able to do that and speak about it. And the last thing that I'll call out about this is that this type of work and exercise can be done at any stage of your career. And I think it really sets you up for a successful job hunt experience. All right, so let's talk about the application phase. So you're interested in a job posting, now what? I think the best thing to do is get your resume ready for that job. So this is gonna be a little bit about some resume tips. So your resume needs to reflect what the job description is looking for. I could do a separate session on like how to write a strong resume, but I wanted to show you guys some tips on how you look at a job posting and then make sure that your resume reflects what they're looking for. So on the left here, I have an old screenshot, but this is for the role that I currently have, what they were looking for. And on the right is just a snapshot of my resume that I applied for. So the very first thing you'll see on the qualifications and requirements of this job, they're asking for experience leading content strategy and landing page execution. And they listed out a few CMS or content management system platforms that they want experience working in. So at the top of my resume here under Ogilvy, I have drive development of landing pages on Gerber.com. And I have the CMS, which is Drupal, that we worked in. And under Deutsch at the bottom here, I have another bullet about how I manage website content creation. On the left here, they're asking for a background in creating reports and presentations showing web analytics data, site evaluations and recommendations derived from report insights. So on the right on my resume, I made sure that I included how I reported monthly on performance of campaigns and websites, and then provided asset recommendation and optimization recommendations to exceed benchmarks. Two more that I'll go through. They were looking for strong leadership skills with a proven ability to coordinate and influence team members from multiple internal departments and external vendors. So at the very top of my Deutsch bullets, I have how I led a 360 global product launch campaign across 5 different teams, and how I built a master brand campaign for AccuView, a global launch toolkit, and rolled that out to different regions. And the last one that I'll highlight here, they were looking for the ability to effectively present and communicate with senior leadership. So I made sure to include how I spearheaded the branding, pitch to CEO, and launch and serve as the lead of Deutsch New York's diversity inclusion group Beyond. And just a quick hot tip, cover letters, some companies read them, some don't. My point of view is that writing them will only help you tell your story and further be able to sell yourself in an interview. So I encourage people to, if they have the time, to write one out. All right, here's my favorite part. I like to find ways to bring your personality through a PDF or your resume. And there's 2 ways in which you can do that. In an activities or an honor section, you can slip some cool things about you in. And I love to put one line at the bottom with all interests that you have. So I've had this, and I'll probably get rid of this in the next few years, but I have the award that I got, Campus Cutie, May 2015 on my resume. And there've been a handful of interviews where I've seen someone in the same conference room read that and just audibly laugh. And right there, the ice is broken. I feel like they get a sense of who I am. And it just like makes it so much easier just to talk. Interests. Having some pretty niche interests on here can actually spark conversation. So I was asked in an interview when I was job hunting in 2017, where the best fried pickle that I've ever eaten was. So I told this man that it was at the Dundee Dell in Omaha that I had the best fried pickle of my life. And he also saw using GIFs to communicate as one of my interests. So I pulled out my phone and I showed him all my favorite GIFs that I had to react in certain messages and situations. And from that moment on, it was just so much easier to communicate, and it felt less of an interview and more of a conversation. All right, so now I want to talk about the in, what that looks like, what it is, and how to get it. So I define the in as it's not just who you know, it's who you know that will vouch for you. And there's a few ways that you can do this. In the short term, I think that the best thing to do is look in your network and to see if any of your friends or if your LinkedIn connections can make an intro for you. I've had sometimes success cold reaching out to either HR, a recruiter, or someone on a relevant team with a clear ask to connect with them. The pros of this approach, sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But the cons is that people are busy and this could come across as negative. So what I recommend people to do is take more of a long-term approach. And this is building relationships in your network. So a few ways to do that. I think getting involved in professional community groups, which I think everyone on this call is, and reaching out to people with roles that you one day might want to have, and just establishing a relationship of wanting to pick their brain about what they do, if they like their experience, and just forming a connection. The pros of this is that it's significantly less pressure for the opposite party, as there's no really urgency to refer to an open role. You can always do this in your career, regardless of where you're at. The con here is that if you're actively job hunting, getting a referral or a job opening isn't always immediate. All right, so let's talk about the interview. So when you have an interview, here are some of my favorite tips. So I like to tell people that interviewing is just responsive storytelling. The way that most of the interviews I've been in have worked is that the first round is a screening call with the recruiter. Second round is usually a hiring manager call, who's your future boss. And then in the final rounds, it's meeting different extended team members. So here are a few stories that you want to prepare. Tell me about yourself is a line that you will hear time and time again. I like to tell people that really just like a 2-minute max summary of your experiences and what you're looking to get out of a future experience. Sprinkled in with a few things about your personal life is more than enough for that question. What's your interest in working at whatever company name? You'll hear that one and should be able to speak on that. Examples of what the job is looking for. So this could be the role that I have now is all about building web pages. So I made sure that I had examples from end to end that I could speak about building web pages. Managing multiple projects. This is just something that they'll want to get a sense of how you manage multiple things at once. Conflict resolution, this is a big one. Being able to talk about a time there was a conflict that you then had a role in resolving is always effective. And this is a question that sometimes people get thrown by, but asking a time that you weren't successful or a time that you failed. Really, they're looking for just an understanding of how you approach highly stressful situations. So I like to flip this question a little bit and tell the interview about a time that I almost failed, but then did something proactively to then not fail. I think that's a good way to approach that question. And the last one here that is good to brush up on is talking about your life outside of work. So I know that the world is much different from a year ago, but when I was applying for jobs, I was super involved in an LGBT volleyball league in New York. So I was able to talk about my experience in that group as just kind of an outside of work thing. And my last interview tip here is to write out questions that are tailored to the person you're interviewing with. So in the recruiting round, I would ask questions about the organization, so company values, the organizational structure, any diversity and inclusion initiatives, employee resource groups or ERGs that you can get involved in. Any company-wide mentorship opportunities are always a good one. When you get to the hiring manager stage, I would ask really about the role, ask about team goals, team focuses, expectations of the role. And this is one of my favorite questions, but asking the hiring manager what success looks like in that role. And the biggest thing I would want to assess is what is the hiring manager's management style? Just getting a feel if you feel like you can learn and grow from them. And then when you meet the extended team members, I would ask each of them about their experience on the team. And my favorite question to ask other team members is, what can this role do that would make your job easier? It shows that you're ready to come in and make a difference. And really, I want to add value to the team. And I have team culture and company culture spread across all of these, just because I feel like every unique answer you get, if it's the same, it says one thing, and if it's different, it says another thing. So I would be curious just to ask everyone that you're meeting with. And just a quick reminder about interviewing, you're also interviewing this company and these people to assess if both of those things fit your own needs and goals. So just keep that in mind. This is a two-way street when you get to this point. And the last thing that we'll touch on is just the section I'm calling looking ahead, which is ultimately just how to keep reflecting, learning, and growing. So in terms of reflecting, after an interview, I always like to ask myself, how do I feel? Do I see myself being able to learn and grow here? And is this a company or a boss that I'd want to work for? I think all of these things are super important to just be very cognizant of, that would play a big role in if you were extended the offer. The biggest thing that I had to learn, took me a few years to learn this, is that rejection or a no is not equivalent to failure. I think rejection is really learning, but it's done by a push in a different direction. And the last thing here, as you think about how you're growing from the experience, what did you learn from the process and the experience? Is there anything that came up that you felt was surprising or really solidified the fact that this is the right path for you? And really the big thing here is to pivot as needed, but to keep going in the job hunt. And what I want to leave you guys with is that everyone here deserves a fulfilling job and career. So I encourage everyone to continue to reach for that. And that's all I got. So I know we have 2.5 minutes. So I'd love to answer any questions, and I'll keep this last slide up for anyone that wants to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah, we do have a couple questions for you, so I'll go ahead and shoot those your way. What would you say is important for a creative student to understand about working with account professionals?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that how I've approached my relationship with creatives back when I was on the account side is that it's truly a partnership versus like, there could be an account person who says, the client wants this type of work, can you get this to me tomorrow? I think that's one thing, but like a better account person would really want to understand the ideas and the type of work that the creative is pitching, and have it be more of a working session to understand if they're meeting a client's need or will need a client's need, because it makes the work stronger. And I think just making sure that you listen to the account person because they know the client inside and out, and less of like a this is my expertise, not yours type of mentality.
Totally. It's definitely a team effort, and sometimes those ideas come from the receptionist. You never know.
Yep.
What has been your favorite project that you've been a part of?
My favorite project. I mean, I think getting a chance to really build peacocktv.com from the ground up and being one of the key leaders to launch that both business and the site has been one of my proudest moments that I'm very glad that Peacock is doing as well it's been doing. And it's a place that I feel like I'll be at for a couple years. So I would say probably launching Peacock is probably the best thing so far.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Peacock TV, so thank you. Would you recommend adjusting your resume for each job you apply to based on the job description?
Yeah, so I think it can get overwhelming to have a unique resume for every single role. But I think if you're able to narrow down to like 2 or 3 potential types of roles that you're going for, it's a little bit less stressful. So like if, for example, say I was looking for a role focused on email marketing, I would tailor my resume to email marketing experience and then use that for different email marketing jobs. I think that's a little bit more of a less overwhelming process than like applying to like multiple different types of roles.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Alex. And everyone, don't forget to reach out to him on LinkedIn if you want to connect. It's right up there for you.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for having me.
Of course.
Thanks, Alex. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up the speaker portion of Meet the Pros. I hope you all took hold of, a lot of different great insights that you were able to hear from all of our speakers across the last 2 days. As you know, we have portfolio reviews to end out the programming. Before we close, make sure that you do look at the details that they have shared with you for your invitation. If you have not yet contacted or have been set up for a review time, please visit the room that we're about to put in the chat, and we'll do our best to get you connected with the pro. And if you have received an email from Terry directly in regard to your reviews, please go to the common space as well. We will have this opened up here shortly so that we can help coordinate that effort as much as we need to. But thank you all again for your participation and the insight that you have also shared with our team throughout this event. We know that it's different from all of the years, but we welcome your feedback from speakers and just the event in general and how we can consider that for years to come. I know Marley has a few prizes to give away. So Marley, if you want to touch on that quick, I can do the last minute announcements after that.
Sounds good. All right, so in true AAF Omaha fashion, we do have some prizes to give out. Now that you are all members, we decided to throw everyone's name in a hat, and we pulled 8 different winners. So we have Peyton Fry from the Creative Center, Levi Ventura from Union College, Evan Ludwig from the University of Nebraska at Kearney, Sophie Davies from the University of Missouri, Caleb Pfeiffer from Western Iowa Tech Community College, Abigail Swanson from Chadron State College, Mackenzie Zaruba from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and Kyle Jones from Metropolitan Community College. If you just heard your name, Terry will be connecting with you via email and get your swag sent to you soon.
Thanks, Marley. Yes, we're really excited. We are able to do member perks throughout the year for all of our professional programming. So if you were lucky enough to receive one today, make sure to register for future programming and you might have your name drawn again. We are lucky to partner with a lot of local organizations that we can share gift cards or other swag materials. But just want to say one more thank you to all of our sponsors for the event. It would not be possible for us to put this on without them. Centro, Woodman Life, Verizon Media, Swanson Russell, Smith Kroger, The Ambient Store, and Envoy. So if we don't see you in the common space, again, that link is shared in the chat for you all to connect with if you don't have your individual sessions set up with your professionals. Thank you so much from our entire team. We've really enjoyed being able to share these thoughts with you all and hope you took things away from this. And we hope to see you next year.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
I'm gonna end this for everyone right here. And then I'm gonna open the common room. And so I'm gonna wait just a couple of minutes in case the 31 participants still on here need that common room link, and put it in the chat. And we're gonna close down in just a couple of minutes so we can open the common room. And we will be in that common room at about 2:10 to 2:15 if you did not have portfolio reviews assigned.
Sounds good. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks.